Chapter 2268. Chen Zhao wasn't injured at all. However, the feeling of going from strong to weak made Chen Zhao feel very weak. It wasn't a physical feeling, but a psychological one. This also caused the others to think that Chen Zhao was injured when they saw him. "Mr. Chen, do you really not need a holy light spell? It'll be very effective." Matthew had the intention to rope Chen Zhao in and befriend him. However, the church's teachings also taught him that he couldn't leave Chen Zhao in the lurch. Whether it was for business or personal reasons, Matthew hoped to help Chen Zhao. However, Chen Zhao didn't want to be healed by some holy light spell at all. "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm not injured." "I'm just weak, not injured," Chen Zhao replied weakly. "Fine." Matthew nodded helplessly. "If you really need it, tell me at any time." Chen Zhao shrugged. Actually, he'd always been in a good state. Matthew's group of 5 and Chen Zhao's group didn't have a specific destination. They just chose a direction. After walking for a while, they found an area filled with countless skeletons. The skeletons had completely covered the area. Looking over, they couldn't see the end of the sea of skeletons. Some of the skeletons belonged to humans, some belonged to other creatures, some were big, some were small. In the white sea of skeletons, there were also many weapons stuck in the bones. This place. Matthew frowned. He and his companions were all successors of the church. They all had the power of holy light. Therefore, they were very uncomfortable with this area filled with the aura of death. Chen Zhao didn't like this place either, mainly because it was uncomfortable to walk on the skeletons. Without a doubt, this used to be a Shiraba. Countless living beings fought and killed each other here. In the end, only piles of white bones were left. What exactly is this place? How many people are buried here? It was difficult to even count the number of races that had died here, let alone count the number of the dead. There were too many skeletons of various creatures. If a normal person stepped in here, they'd probably be scared to death. Just then, 10 people appeared in front of them. Those 10 people were obviously from the same team. When the team saw Chen Zhao's group, they immediately stopped. Both sides looked at each other. Neither side attacked blindly. Matthew was confident in his strength, but they were the minority after all. The other party's strength was unknown, and they clearly had the advantage in numbers. If they attacked rashly, they might suffer a great loss. Chen Zhao frowned and turned to look at Matthew. At this moment, Matthew and his companions were in high spirits. This confused Chen Zhao even more. Although he had only just met Matthew, they did not have much interaction. But in her mind, Matthew should be the kind of gentle and refined person. It was completely different from his current temperament. Why did he suddenly become so impulsive when he met the person opposite him? "Matthew, what's affecting you?" Chen Zhao reminded. Matthew was stunned for a moment, and then he came to his senses. "It's the aura that permeates this place." Matthew's expression changed. "Alterando, Fee, Paolo, Angie. Calm down," Matthew reminded them. When everyone heard Matthew's magical voice, they also woke up from their manic and irritable emotions. Matthew glanced at Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chen, thank you. Aren't you affected?" "I am," Chen Zhao said, "but I still retain my rationality." Actually, it was not that he was completely unaffected. It was because Chen Zhao was personally observing the situation from a higher position. He did not see the 10 people as opponents, so he naturally did not have that high fighting spirit. Therefore, compared to the others, Chen Zhao could control his emotions better. He could also observe others from a bystander's perspective. However, Matthew and the others regained their rationality after Chen Zhao's reminder. But the 10 people opposite them did not get rid of their manic emotions so easily. Everyone, you're also participants of the Holy Glory, right? We'd better calm down now. Matthew recovered his usual calmness and gentleness. He tried to use his attitude to dissolve the other party's hostility and fighting spirit. Hesitation and awkwardness appeared on the faces of the 10 opponents. Their eyes were constantly changing, as if they were having an intense battle in their hearts. But just then, a red figure descended from the sky without any warning, landing directly in the center of the two parties. Amidst the scattered bone fragments and dust, a figure emerged from the path. It was a red-skinned man with a bare chest. His hair stretched back in a bold and vigorous manner. The man held a large axe in one hand and a large sword in the other. His red skin was very abnormal, but he was still human. The red-skinned man panted heavily and grinned. More newcomers. The two parties, who had slowly calmed down, were instantly filled with hostility again. Come. Let's fight. The red-skinned man roared. The originally calm Matthew suddenly cast a holy spell. A lightsaber extended from his empty right hand. Purify that evil and unorthodox path. The frenzied battle intent seemed to be emanating from this red-skinned man. His appearance had caused Matthew to lose control. Right now, Matthew was like a Jedi in a star battle. He swung his lightsaber and charged at the red-skinned man. The red-skinned man raised his large sword and blocked Matthew's attack. Matthew somersaulted in the air and pointed his other hand at the red-skinned man. Judgment. A golden light suddenly appeared above the red-skinned man's head and fell straight down. Attacked from above, the red-skinned man knelt on one knee. Matthew steadied himself after the somersault and launched another consecutive spell attack. Judgment. The shadow of an angel holding a long sword appeared behind the red-skinned man. The sword pierced through his chest. The red-skinned man spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood quickly evaporated in the air and turned into smoke. Chen Zhao could see that the smoke contained strong magic power. When the magic smoke spread around, Chen Zhao immediately frowned and took a few steps back. However, the others didn't seem to notice anything wrong with the smoke. They all absorbed it, more or less. This was especially so for Matthew, who was the closest to them. The skin on his face was slightly dark red, just like the red-skinned man. Kill him. Give him the righteous judgment. It was as if they didn't see the red lines on Matthew's face. Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. They seemed to be affected by the smoke too. Matthew himself didn't notice it at all. The spells he cast became even more violent. Boiling justice. A burning holy flame appeared on Matthew's lightsaber. Without hesitation, Matthew slashed at the red-skinned man's neck. Chapter 2269. The flaming lightsaber slashed at the red-skinned man's neck. Ah! The red-skinned man screamed in pain. The flaming lightsaber cut into 3 parts. Matthew wanted to go further, but he couldn't go any further. The red-skinned man roared. Large amounts of red smoke spewed out of the cut on his neck. The red-skinned man's body suddenly sank down. At the same time, he raised his right heel and kicked Matthew's chest. Matthew was kicked more than 10 meters away. He vomited a mouthful of blood. Matthew was clearly injured, but his face was flushed. Chen Zhao could clearly see that Matthew had inhaled large amounts of red smoke. The red-skinned man seemed to be the source of the pollution. He kept releasing the red smoke, so Matthew was naturally the first to be affected. The others were also affected. Chen Zhao was the only one who wasn't affected. Chen Zhao suddenly focused. This feeling was very similar to Cui Xin's domain power. They both affected one's emotions. Chen Zhao seemed to be affected. However, as long as one was rational enough, they wouldn't be controlled. Moreover, with his previous experience, Chen Zhao was even more familiar with emotional attacks. The red-skinned man was heavily injured. Blood and red smoke were still seeping out of the cut on his neck. Whoosh! Suddenly, the red-skinned man howled at the sky. He looked like a wolf in the forest. What's he doing? Is he calling for companions like a wolf? The person who'd spoken laughed, but the next moment, his laughter stopped abruptly. Oh no! He's really calling for companions. Just then, the ground nearby suddenly bulged. Another red-skinned man stood up from the ground. Before anyone could react, another red-skinned woman jumped down from the top of a giant beast skeleton. She seemed to have been hiding there for a long time. Even Chen Zhao's senses were suppressed, so he didn't notice the woman. Moreover, the woman's figure was taller than the others of the same species. She didn't look very sturdy, but she gave off a strong sense of oppression. Moreover, her hair was very thick. Or more accurately, thicker than anyone else's. Chen Zhao turned to look at the other red-skinned men. They were also very hairy. However, the woman's hair was the thickest. It was probably 2 or 3 times thicker than normal people's, and it was all tied behind her head. Under the call of the first red-skinned man, a total of 23 companions came to his aid. They all had red skin and thick hair. Matthew's injuries were not serious, and after giving himself a simple holy light nourishment, his injuries had already recovered by 80 to 90%. However, when he looked at the red-skinned woman in the lead, his face showed some hesitation. Chen Zhao looked at the red-skinned woman. She was completely naked. Could it be that Matthew was tempted by her beauty? The red-skinned woman wasn't ugly, but she was 2 heads taller than Matthew. She was estimated to be about 2.4 meters tall. If the two of them get together. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin as lewd images appeared in his mind. Then, he shuddered. That scene was truly unbearable. Suddenly, a wave of coldness came straight at him. Chen Zhao suddenly woke up, but the attack was already in front of him. Chen Zhao sat on the ground. The attack was too sudden. Chen Zhao's senses were also sealed, so he didn't realize it until it was right in front of him. In everyone's eyes, they only thought that Chen Zhao was weak and lacked battle experience. Chen Zhao's absent-mindedness and strange expression proved their guesses. Thankfully, someone beside him helped Chen Zhao out. Chen Zhao remembered that the woman was called Angie. Angie looked down at Chen Zhao, who was sitting on the ground in a sorry state. You shouldn't be absent-minded on the battlefield, Angie said arrogantly. It'll cost you your life, especially when you're not very strong. You have to be more careful of all your enemies. Chen Zhao was absent-minded again. This woman's attitude was exactly the same as his past self. Basically, when he had the advantage, he would teach others or show off. However, Chen Zhao had never thought that he would be taught a lesson by others one day. Bang! An extremely loud sound boomed in Chen Zhao's ears. Following it was a huge impact. Angie stood before Chen Zhao again. I said, don't be absent-minded. Chen Zhao looked up at Angie and then at the person who had attacked him. It was the red-skinned woman. The first time she had attacked him was a surprise attack. She had charged at him without any warning. The second time, she had spat out a fireball. The red-skinned woman's 2 attacks didn't succeed, so she didn't continue. Her limbs were on the ground, and she growled at everyone like a wild beast. Why did she attack me? Am I easy to bully? Chen Zhao asked, turning his head to look at Angie. Angie glanced at him and nodded. Probably. The red-skinned woman licked her lips. Let's fight. Come, let's fight. Let's fight with all our strength. Chen Zhao was confused. What's wrong with these people? They're all so warlike. However, Angie was also affected. Streaks of red blood could already be seen under her skin. It wasn't as serious as Matthew's, but it wasn't light either. Moreover, they didn't seem to notice their companion's abnormality. Was he the only one who could see the red streaks? Just as Chen Zhao was distracted again, Matthew spoke. Yusalai. Motorcycle. It's you guys. Matthew's tone showed that he was very surprised. He seemed to recognize the red-skinned woman and the other red-skinned man. What's going on? How did you become like this? Matthew asked. It seemed that Matthew didn't just know them. They were very close. The red-skinned woman in the lead grinned. Matthew, you look the same as 10 years ago. You don't seem to have aged at all. Yusalai. You still remember me. You're not controlled. Matthew originally thought that Yushili was being controlled by something, but Yushili could still call out his name. Judging from her mind and tone, she didn't seem to be controlled. Why exactly? Kill me, or let me kill you, and you'll understand, Yusalai said in a calm yet crazy tone. You're crazy. Ha. Come, fight me, the crazy me. Is there something you can't tell me? Tell me. I'll help you. There's nothing. I'm very good right now. Seems like you're really crazy. Maybe I should use holy power to wake you up. Chapter 2270. Matthew could see the madness in Yusuli and the other red-skinned people. But he didn't realize that he was also moving forward on the path of madness. Yusuli arched her body slightly. Her palms, which had been pressed against the ground, also left the ground. Red smoke started rising from her palms. The red smoke didn't disperse. Instead, it condensed into a pair of long swords that looked like they were made of rubies. Matthew was even more confused. What had happened to Yusuli? Back then, Yusuli should have been an elemental spiritualist. But looking at her current posture, her fighting style had completely changed. Yusuli seemed to have locked a wild beast inside her body. It was the same with the motorcycle. However, the current situation didn't allow him to think too much. The team of 10 people had already started fighting with the other red-skinned people. Yusuli charged at Matthew, who faced her head-on. The flaming lightsaber clashed with the red crystal longsword. Sparks and red dust flew into the air. Looks like you've grown a lot in the past 10 years, Yusuli said as she attacked wildly. Her attacks were crazy, but her tone was very rational. She was even recalling the time when she and Matthew had met. Matthew was also attacking and defending, but hearing Yusuli's words, he also sank into his memories. Yushili had met him during the last battle of the Holy Glorious One. 10 years ago, Yusili had been as powerful as Matthew. As a powerful elemental witch, she had shone brightly in the entire Holy Glory. If not for Matthew, a genius of the church, Yusili would probably have been the brightest star in the last battle of Holy Glory. In the end, Yusili still lost to Matthew. But she didn't lose in terms of strength. She lost in terms of inheritance. Yusili was the heir of a witch family. And behind Matthew was the entire church. In terms of inheritance, there weren't many forces in the world that could compete with the church. But after that battle, they hadn't seen each other again. Matthew had never thought that they would be reunited under such circumstances. Chen Zhao watched the crazy fighting on the battlefield. Everyone was showing their craziest side. The others didn't know, but Matthew shouldn't be like this. His rationality seemed to be disappearing from his body bit by bit. And he didn't notice it at all. Everyone at the scene didn't notice it. Even though Chen Zhao had warned Matthew beforehand. But he still descended into madness. At this moment, the third team appeared. There were 7 of them. They were also part of the Holy Glory participants who were trapped here. Moreover, from the state of their bodies, they had already fought once. There were more or less bloodstains and injuries on their bodies. A normal person's thought process would be to find a place to recuperate after being injured. But looking at their attitude and actions, it was clear that they were not here to rest. They directly joined the battle. There was no hesitation or retreat. The group that had suddenly joined the battle was even crazier than Matthew and the others. Apart from the clothes on their bodies, their skin had already turned completely red. At this moment, a brown-haired girl rushed into the battlefield. "Stop! Stop, all of you!" Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. The girl didn't seem to be affected. That girl should be a companion of the third group. But she didn't look the least bit deranged. The girl wanted to rush into the battlefield several times to stop the battle. However, she didn't seem to be very strong. At least in Chen Zhao's eyes, the girl was still far from being able to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory. The girl's voice was hoarse, but it was useless. "Do you want some throat lozenges?" Suddenly, an abrupt voice rang in the girl's ears. "Ah!" The girl fell to the ground. "You're even more cowardly than me." Only then did the girl look up. It was a sickly man. Who are you?" The girl realized that the sickly man's skin was very normal. There were no red spots. "You're not affected either?" the girl asked before Chen Zhao could speak. Chen Zhao was also very curious about the girl. Why wasn't she affected? His overall ability was strong, so he wasn't affected. But looking at this girl, she didn't seem to have much magic power. She could only have a special spell that could resist the red gas. While Chen Zhao was studying the girl was also studying Chen Zhao. Looking at Chen Zhao's sickly appearance, he didn't seem to have any ability. Naturally, she thought that Chen Zhao should have the same spell as her, or at least similar. "Why aren't you affected?" Chen Zhao asked. "Don't you have the answer yourself? Why bother asking?" Chen Zhao's face twitched. "What answer do I have? What if I tell you that I don't have an answer?" "You don't have an answer. How you resist the red gas is how I resist it. Since we're the same kind of people, there's no need to keep secrets," the girl said nonchalantly. Red gas. Chen Zhao really didn't know how to resist it. Because he didn't resist it at all. Although Chen Zhao wasn't invincible yet, 99% of the external evils in the world were useless against him. However, 99% of the external evils in this world were basically ineffective against him. Seeing the confusion on Chen Zhao's face, the girl asked tentatively, "You really don't know that it's red gas?" Seeing the confusion on Chen Zhao's face, the girl asked tentatively, "You really don't know that this is the red gas?" "No. I don't know either." The girl immediately shook her head. But looking at her expression, Chen Zhao could tell that she knew. She knew everything. But looking at the girl's expression, she was clearly saying, "I know. I know everything." The girl hesitated and then shook her head. "I don't know." "Those are your friends?" Chen Zhao asked, pointing at the third group of people. "Are those your friends?" Chen Zhao asked, pointing at the third team that had joined the battle. The girl nodded. "Yes. They look dangerous. They might die here." Frightened by Chen Zhao, the girl immediately lost her composure. "What should we do? What am I going to do? No, I have to stop them. What should I do? Do you have a way to wake them up?" "I can't, but as soon as I get close, they attack me. I can't use scarlet purification. In other words, as long as they don't resist, you can wake them up." The girl looked at the battlefield. "My magic power isn't strong enough, so I can't guarantee that I can wake everyone up. And those who have turned completely red, I can't purify them. They've turned into scarlet thugs. Scarlet thugs. What is this? Are they the ones with red skin? Those are high-level scarlet defilers, the girl said. Chapter 2271. Are they classified according to their level of contamination? Chen Zhao asked. The girl nodded. Pointing at the first few with red skin, she said, those people are the highest level. They've been completely contaminated by the red gas. Moreover, they can continuously produce red gas and contaminate others. So they're called defilers. Yes, the weakest ones are the scarlet thugs. They haven't been completely transformed by the scarlet gas, but their bodies have undergone great changes. In theory, if I have enough strength, I can still force the scarlet gas out of their bodies. However, with my magic power, I can't force the scarlet gas out. As for those with lighter symptoms, they are infected. As long as I can force the scarlet gas out of their bodies in time, their bodies and minds can still return to normal. Then what's the source of the red gas? Chen Zhao asked. These scarlet defilers were obviously transformed from necromancers. Chen Zhao could hear this from Matthew and Yuseli's conversation. What about before these scarlet defilers? It was either an object or a person. There had to be a source. The girl hesitated for a long time and then shook her head. I don't know. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. This girl didn't even know how to lie. What's your name? Chen Zhao asked. Indelia. Do you know what this place is? This is the ancient Scarlet Battlefield. The ancient Scarlet Battlefield. Please don't tell me there's something sealed here. No, no. Indelia hurriedly waved her hands in denial. Chen Zhao sighed. The more Indelia reacted like this, the more likely there was something hidden here. What a headache. He hoped that whatever was sealed here wouldn't escape. He hoped that everything here had nothing to do with him. That's good. Chen Zhao was happy that Indelia denied it. He was afraid that Indelia would tell him that it was to maintain world peace and then force him to do more scenes. Chen Zhao turned his head to look at Matthew and the other teammates. He sighed. They'd taken care of him before. It didn't matter if their care was meaningful. At least they were friends. He couldn't just stand by and watch. Chen Zhao took a few steps forward and took a deep breath. Then, he let out a thunderous roar. Matthew! That voice instantly caused an uproar. Whether it was the scarlet contaminants or the spiritualists who had yet to convert, they all stopped instantly. Matthew's consciousness also fluctuated violently. Haven't you noticed that there's something wrong with you? And your companions, is this how you lead them? A pained expression appeared on Matthew's face. Matthew began to pant heavily, and with each breath, red gas leaked out of his mouth. Amazing! He's actually able to expel the red gas from his body. Delia's face was filled with shock. The red gas did not completely dissipate. Instead, it gathered above Matthew's head. Delia immediately stepped forward and cast a spell from a distance of more than 20 meters. The red cloud above Matthew's head seemed to be attracted by India and began to rush toward her. But the red cloud came to a halt in front of Delia. As Delia continued to rub her palms, the red cloud became smaller and smaller until it completely disappeared. Didn't he expel the scarlet gas from his body? What were you doing just now? The scarlet gas will not dissipate on its own. If the scarlet gas is not completely purified, it will quickly be absorbed back into the body. Therefore, every time the scarlet gas is expelled from the body, it needs to be completely purified. Chen, come and help me. Matthew was very weak at the moment. His arms supported him from the ground. He could not even stand up, so he could only ask for Chen Zhao's help. Chen Zhao helped Matthew up and sent him to a nearby rock to sit down to rest. How do you feel? Very bad, Matthew said weakly. I feel like I'm weaker than you right now. Let me check. Then, Chen Zhao lifted Matthew's wrist. At the moment, Matthew wasn't just weak. His blood seemed to have depleted too. Phew. Luckily you were there just now. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have gone crazy too. Matthew's face was extremely pale. As the red gas dispersed, there were no more red spots on his face, but it was still frighteningly pale. You should thank that girl, Chen Zhao said, pointing at Delia. Thank you, Mississippi. My companions are still in trouble. Can you help them solve the problem? Delia looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao shrugged. Sure. Are you sure? You don't look much better than him, Delia said. Chen Zhao grabbed Matthew's shoulder and sent some life force into him. Matthew suddenly felt vigorous energy flow from Chen Zhao's palm into his body. His weakness was receding like the tide. This feels really good. Don't stop. I can only help you this much. The rest is up to you, Chen Zhao said. This spell makes me feel really good. What is it? Can you teach me? No. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. The lesson he was teaching him was life force. Chen Zhao was only giving him blood to replenish his lost blood. How could he give him extra life force? Although Chen Zhao had a lot of life force, it was like a non-renewable resource on Earth. Every time he used it, he would have less. Chen Zhao wouldn't give Matthew more life force. Plus, he couldn't teach it to Matthew. Even if he learned it, he couldn't cast it. Unless he was willing to share his life force with others. By the way, is the guy sealed here related to the Scarlet Church? No. Wait. I didn't say anything was sealed here. Delia hurriedly covered her mouth. But her slow reaction couldn't keep the secret. Chen Zhao had only used a little bit of calculation and he had already played Delia around like a fiddle. But this wasn't good news for Chen Zhao. Can you explain it to me? No need. You'll understand soon, Chen Zhao said calmly. Okay. I've talked to people like this many times, but this is the first time someone said it to me. How's your rest? This girl said that if we don't heal your teammates soon, they'll be completely swallowed by the scarlet gas. Okay, I'll do it now. Be careful. Don't let it twist your mind again. Chapter 2272. With his previous experience, Matthew was even more careful this time. Sometimes, people would not learn to be obedient after suffering a loss once. They would only truly wake up after suffering a loss twice. Matthew was like this. This time, he cast an isolation spell on himself. Then, he started to attack. His first target was Angie. Chen Zhao looked at the situation on the battlefield. Another group of people charged over from afar. This group was even worse than the spiritualists from before. Their bodies had been completely corroded by the red gas. They had lost all rationality. As soon as they arrived, they joined the battlefield and attacked anyone they wanted. This caused the situation to become more and more chaotic. The first person to die also appeared. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at the chaos. In such an intense battle, people should have died long ago. But only when this team joined did there start to be casualties. The Scarlet Defilers that had appeared at the beginning were the strongest. However, they didn't kill anyone. They seemed to hold back a third of their strength when they fought with them. This caused them to keep getting injured. After careful observation, Chen Zhao finally understood. They weren't killing people. They were creating more of their kind. Every time they were injured, red gas would seep out of their wounds. Moreover, the scarlet energy would definitely be absorbed. This would make the spiritualist's symptoms worse and worse. In the end, they would be completely corroded. On the spiritualist side, Matthew was the strongest. Chen Zhao's gaze fell on Matthew. Right now, Matthew's magic power had probably recovered by 60%. But he had an overwhelming advantage over Angie. They used the same spell, but they could instantly tell who was stronger. Angie, calm down. Don't be controlled by your madness and anger. I have to purify them. They must die. Anyone who stands in the way of my justice must die. Matthew. Are you going to stop me too? Angie's innocent and beautiful face now revealed a ferocious and terrifying expression. For Matthew, any words were superfluous at the moment. Matthew stretched out his hand to grab Angie from a few meters away. Two silver chains flickering with holy radiance shot out from the void, directly binding Angie tightly. Let me go. Angie bellowed, and a pair of angel-like wings shot out from her back. However, that pair of angel wings, which should have been pure white and flawless, was now tinged with red. In an instant, the silver chains shattered as Angie spread her angel wings. Stop! Matthew shouted, and the magic in his body instantly burst out. However, in the next moment, Matthew immediately realized that he could not be swayed by his emotions and immediately calmed down. It's really troublesome to pay attention to not being affected here, Matthew muttered to himself. However, his hands did not stop at all. He knew Angie too well. Although Angie was his comrade in arms, she was also his student. Angie's outstanding bloodline and talent were all grown under his watch, bit by bit. So when the furious angel showed her angel wings, Matthew wasn't surprised. Of course, if Matthew was at his peak, he could easily suppress Angie. However, he had yet to fully recover, so his strength was far from his peak. Angie flapped her wings and charged at Matthew. Matthew stood where he was, looking like he was going to be captured without a fight. However, the next moment, a pair of pure white wings spread out from Matthew's back. Calm down. Matthew moved in an instant and pressed down with his palm. He pressed Angie to the ground. Angie wanted to struggle, but Matthew was one step ahead. He was behind Angie and held her wings firmly with both hands. Oh! Chen Zhao exclaimed. Angie's wings were real, but Matthew's wings were not. He had used his own holy light power to create this pair of wings. In the end, the real one was suppressed by the fake one. Chen Zhao was curious. What was the use of angel wings? Matthew's angel wings used a lot of magic. But Matthew still used a lot of magic to create a pair of wings. Because his senses were sealed, Chen Zhao could not accurately sense the flow of magic in Matthew's body. Miss Indelia, please hurry. After all, I can't control her for too long. Under Matthew's urging, Indelia immediately jogged over to Matthew and Angie. Ignoring Angie's struggle, Indelia started guiding the red gas out of Angie's body. The process was the same as Matthew's. The difference was that Matthew used his own willpower to expel the red gas. Angie clearly did not have as strong a willpower as Matthew. However, with Indelia's help, Angie's struggle was no longer as intense. The manic and crazed look on her face also faded. Of course, Angie still remembered everything that had just happened clearly. Angie fell to the ground, limp. She said weakly, "Captain. Mr. Matthew. Can you let go of me? Also, I know that you plucked a few of my feathers. Give them back to me." Matthew smiled awkwardly and let go of Angie. It's probably your illusion. I didn't do anything. With that, Matthew looked at Chen Zhao. Chen, can you help Angie recover? Cough, cough, cough. Okay. I'll come up, cough, cough. Chen Zhao suddenly started coughing. It felt like he was going to cough out his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. Looking at Chen Zhao, he was afraid that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. Seeing Chen Zhao walk over shakily, Matthew immediately said, Okay, forget it. If you really have the ability, you should suppress your injuries first. Let Angie lie down. Chen Zhao shrugged helplessly. Fine. Matthew took a deep breath and looked at the others who were still in a frenzy. He wasn't in a good state right now, even though Chen Zhao had helped him recover a little. However, his battle with Angie still made him feel uncontrollably weak. But now was not the time to sigh. Since he was the leader, he had to let all his team members leave this trial safely. Chen Zhao looked at Matthew's figure. Actually, even if he suppressed his power now, it would be a piece of cake for him to recover Angie. However, Chen Zhao really wanted to see where Matthew's limit was. Right now, Matthew had already displayed great power. He was even more powerful than everyone in the Supernatural Organization's team. But this shouldn't be his limit. Chen Zhao was also secretly shocked. As a top-notch fighter, he could fight against John from the church or even be stronger. But in terms of low-level fighters, there was still a huge gap between the Supernatural Organization and the church. Chapter 2273. While Chen Zhao was feeling emotional, Matthew had already finished off his second comrade. Of course, he didn't kill his comrade. He just subdued him. This made Chen Zhao even more amazed. Powerful. At least, other than John Sr., Zhang Tianyi, 23rd Snow Mary, and Bifla. Matthew was the most outstanding and powerful spiritualist Chen Zhao had ever seen. Even the gaseous members of the same team paled in comparison to Matthew. Not only was his mana and combat power unparalleled, but his willpower was also unparalleled. After Otrando was subdued and purified, Matthew sat on the ground, panting heavily. Matthew sat down on the ground, panting heavily. Matthew sat on the ground, panting heavily. Matthew, do you need my help? Chen Zhao asked hypocritically. Actually, if Chen Zhao was willing to help, he could probably solve most of the current problems. No need. Matthew didn't want Chen Zhao to help him recover and end up dying. Looking at Chen Zhao's face, it really looked like he could die at any moment. After resting for a while, Matthew stood up and joined the battle again. This time, he subdued Fail and Bo Untu in one go. His 4 comrades finally regained consciousness. Mr. Matthew, and my companion, please lend us a hand as well. Delia looked at Matthew with a pleading look. At this moment, Matthew could be said to be exhausted. But Delia had helped him quite a bit earlier, after all. Without Delia, his comrade wouldn't be able to wake up either. Right now, he couldn't say anything to refuse. Even though his limbs were already trembling. Little girl, can't you see the current situation? Matthew doesn't have much magic power left. You still want him to join the battle. You're forcing him to die. Chen Zhao felt sorry for Matthew. Although Chen Zhao had been slacking off, it didn't mean that he couldn't stand on Matthew's side and speak up for him. Delia's expression and gaze revealed her dissatisfaction. It's fine. Let me rest for a while. I'll be back on the battlefield soon. Matthew was tired, but he still smiled brightly. Just as he said, after a short rest, Matthew stood up again. He seemed to have regained his energy. In fact, Chen Zhao could also see that he was at the end of his rope. Chen Zhao glanced at Delia and put his hand on her shoulder. Girl, if this is your goal, then you've succeeded. But if you go too far, it won't do anyone any good. Mr. Chen, I don't understand what you're saying. When you were purifying them, you were also absorbing the red gas, right? Chen Zhao asked calmly. At first, Chen Zhao didn't notice anything wrong with Delia either. But after purifying the four of them, not only did Delia not feel weak, but she was also full of energy, and the aura on her body began to grow stronger. This change was very unusual. Even Chen Zhao couldn't become stronger for no reason. But this change had happened to Delia. Moreover, she did not mean that it had increased by a little. Her aura had increased several times. On the other hand, Angie, Orlando, Fail, and Bo Untu had all been purified. Although their auras had calmed down, their energy and mana seemed to have been hollowed out. Moreover, India's abnormal attitude made Chen Zhao suspicious of her. Of course, these suspicions weren't enough for Chen Zhao to make a conclusion. What really made Chen Zhao suspicious was that some of the teammates that India had been chasing had already died. But India did not react at all. She did not even feel sad. This was Chen Zhao's biggest doubt about her. She didn't care about her teammates. She only cared about how much red gas she could absorb. Delia turned her head silently and looked at Chen Zhao. An obscure smile appeared on her face. Mr. Chen, can't we keep this tacit understanding? Why do we have to make things clear? India didn't hide anymore. She was no longer that naive girl who didn't even know how to lie. Actually, if one thought about it carefully, they would find some problems. But Chen Zhao had neglected a few. Now, she didn't hide anymore. I don't like being kept in the dark. If you can tell me everything, maybe I can pretend to be a mute. Mr. Chen, look at the current situation. Those four guys are lying there, unable to do anything. Mr. Matthew is exhausted, and you look like you're half dead. And now, I've absorbed the power of four people. Are you sure it's in everyone's best interest to make things clear? I think so. Chen Zhao nodded. But I still want to know. Chen Zhao turned around so that his back was facing the four church members lying on the ground. Before India could understand Chen Zhao's intentions, Chen Zhao had already pinched her cheeks. You'd better tell me the whole story, okay? After all, I don't want to ruin your pretty face. India's cheeks hurt from Chen Zhao's pinching. She wanted to break free from Chen Zhao's hands. However, Chen Zhao's power wasn't something she could resist. Suddenly, India's eyes glowed red and shot at Chen Zhao's face. But Chen Zhao was unharmed. Crack, Delia could hear the sound of her own jawbone cracking. Chen Zhao's strength was also increasing. Shocked, Delia slapped Chen Zhao's chest with both hands. But Chen Zhao still didn't react. He was completely fine. What was going on? What was wrong with this guy? Wasn't he heavily injured? Why didn't my attacks have any effect? If you agree to my request, then blink. If not, you don't have to do anything. Chen Zhao smiled at India. Don't worry. After I crush your head, I'll pretend that I was attacked by something. Delia immediately blinked. At this moment, she also realized that the man in front of her was not as harmless as he seemed on the surface. India panicked too. She'd thought that Chen Zhao was a sickly person. That was why she'd admitted it confidently. In the end, this man looked like a sickly person, but he was actually a lion in disguise. If you scream, even if they misunderstand, I'll still kill you. I think you know what to do. India nodded. Only then did Chen Zhao release his hands. India's tears were squeezed out by Chen Zhao's hands. There was even a red mark on her face. India's chest heaved up and down. Her face was filled with hatred. She hesitated. She glanced at the 4 people lying on the ground and then at Matthew, who was fighting in the distance. What? Are you hoping that someone will come and save you? Or are you using your not-so-good trickery skills to get sympathy from others? Chapter 2274. Indelia hesitated for a long time. Even if she called for help now, Matthew and the others might not stand on her side. Plus, Chen Zhao looked sickly, but he wasn't weak. She might not be his match even if she absorbed the magic power of 4 people. Even if Matthew and the others stood on her side, they might not be able to defeat Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao looked at Indelia. What, are you still thinking about whether you can turn the tables? Delia clenched her teeth and said, I practice scarlet magic. Oh, and then? You don't understand the meaning of scarlet magic. Explain it to me, Chen Zhao said. Indelia's face twitched. She didn't even understand scarlet magic. What a waste of her feelings. Anyway, it's a magic system that the spiritual world doesn't accept. There are magic systems that the spiritual world doesn't accept. There are many people who cultivate dark magic and necromancy. I've never seen anyone being hunted for it. Scarlet magic is different. What's different? More evil? More powerful? Or crueler? Scarlet magic cultivates scarlet aura. Once someone absorbs the scarlet aura, they'll be turned into scarlet thugs, scarlet fanatics, or the even more terrifying scarlet polluters. If there are enough scarlet polluters, they can even distort an entire city or country. Oh, that's the reason. Chen Zhao could understand. Both dark magic and necromancy looked evil, but it was only because the person was strong or evil. But scarlet magic could turn others into scarlet monsters. This made the user of scarlet magic a source of pollution. It was like a product produced by a chemical factory. Perhaps everyone could use it and get used to it. But if there was a chemical factory in front of their house, no one would like it. It was the same for scarlet magic. As you guessed, they absorbed the scarlet gas, and the scarlet gas absorbed their magic power. When they expelled the scarlet gas from their bodies, I absorbed their scarlet gas and obtained their magic power. This was within Chen Zhao's expectations. When Indelia's aura strengthened, Chen Zhao was already suspicious. Although Chen Zhao's senses were suppressed, Delia's aura grew stronger and spread towards Chen Zhao. She clearly did not know how to control her aura. Those aren't your comrades, right? No. Delia glanced at those figures on the battlefield. Who are they? I'm nobody. Delia calmly replied, I don't know them. Like you, they are participants in the Battle of Holy Glory. But when you came before, you were shouting and yelling. Because of you. Delia said, I followed them here, and then I discovered you. You were also not affected by the scarlet gas. You followed them to absorb the scarlet gas from their bodies. That's right. If we're not here, how are you going to absorb it? Do it yourself. Although the process will be rather complicated, it's not impossible, Delia said. What she was implying was that she was also capable of fighting. Those scarlet defilers were created by you. No, as I said before, they have nothing to do with me, Delia said. How am I supposed to believe you? After all, your powers are the same. Those scarlet defilers were created by this battlefield, not me. This battlefield. You said there's something hidden below, right? Delia started to hesitate again. Are you still planning to hide it now? Knowing too much won't do you any good. You know I hate this sentence the most. Everyone has curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. What's hidden below is the source of scarlet magic, the red demon. the Church's first crusade was to suppress him. In that war, the Church had 120,000 holy crusaders, but less than 3,000 returned alive. According to records, the first crusade was in the 11th century, and the Wasteland Market was built before that. The original design of the Wasteland Market was not to suppress the red demons but to be used as a mausoleum. Tomb. Theodosius I. He has that much influence. Chen Zhao was surprised. Theodosius I. He doesn't have that much influence. He's just a mausoleum keeper. This is God's tomb, Delia said. And after the red demon was destroyed, he would continue to resurrect. In order to prevent him from continuing to wreak havoc in the world, the red demon was suppressed here, using the body of a god to suppress the demon, and a large number of Holy Church troops were sent to guard this place. You're saying that there's a god's body here? Yes. Apart from God's power, there's no other way to suppress the red demon. What about these skeletons? These were left by the holy army that guarded this place back then, Delia said. Back then, the red demon was suppressed here, but his power kept seeping out. Just like the Scarlet Defilers, it corrupted the holy army back then. In the end, they completely mutated and fell. In the end, the uncorrupted holy army and the corrupted defilers started a war here. Both sides died, and the scarlet magic came into being. Back then, the holy army developed the scarlet magic to cure their corrupted comrades. Thus, the scarlet magic has the effect of restraining the scarlet aura to a certain extent. However, it has no effect on those who are deeply corrupted. You're saying that Theodosius I isn't the owner of this tomb? He's just a mausoleum keeper? Of course. How could he have the right to use such a huge tomb? This wasteland market was built for only one purpose, to be used by the last ancient god in the human world. Oh, which ancient god? Is he famous? The sun god, Apollo, Delia said. Whoosh. Chen Zhao couldn't help but exclaim. The sun god, Apollo. Anyone who knew Greek mythology would know the sun god, Apollo. After all, he was a very recognizable god. Then why are you here? Chen Zhao asked. I was teleported here, Delia answered. I don't know the specifics. That's a coincidence? As the user of the scarlet magic, you were teleported to the birthplace of the scarlet magic? I doubt it. Chapter 2275. Think about it. If I could enter here on my own, would I still be so weak? Delia said. This doesn't clear your name. From what you said earlier, your scarlet magic needs to absorb the scarlet aura expelled from other people's bodies and then turn it into your own power. Even if you can enter this area freely, you can't just absorb the scarlet aura here to increase your power. Delia's expression darkened. Chen Zhao continued, the Battle of the Holy Glory starts in the desolate town. Many participants come in, so you have a chance to enter the desolate town and even this scarlet battlefield. Maybe everyone, including me, was sent here because of your scheme. No, it's not me. Delia quickly waved her hands. This has nothing to do with me. It's not me. Go to the battlefield and help Matthew, Chen Zhao said. Use your actions to show your stance. I'm not good at fighting. No, you are. Chen Zhao shook his head. The two spells you used to attack me just now show that you have powerful offensive spells. You don't have to act weak before me or the others here. I don't believe or accept it. Why didn't you do anything? You're clearly stronger than me. It seems like you're more suspicious. Maybe you're the real mastermind. Of course I know I'm not. No matter how you doubt me, as long as I'm stronger than you, I don't have to prove anything to you. Chen Zhao smiled at Delia. Indelia glanced at the others. She wanted to team up against Qin Zhao again. However, she'd absorbed most of the others' magic. They wouldn't recover without a few days. Matthew was in a bad state too. He didn't have much power to fight against Qin Zhao now. Under Qin Zhao's threat, Indelia finally made a decision. She temporarily obeyed Qin Zhao's order and went to help Matthew. Matthew was already at the end of his rope. He didn't have much power to continue a high-intensity battle. Moreover, he wasn't facing just one enemy, but enemies after enemies. They didn't line up one by one. Instead, they worked together and kept attacking him. He was already tired from dealing with them. He could feel that he was almost at his limit. Suddenly, a red light passed by Matthew's side and hit the opponent in front of him. Matthew turned around in surprise and saw that it was India. "Miss Indelia, why are you? Let me help you." India gave Matthew a forced smile. "Thank you." With India's support, the pressure on Matthew was greatly reduced. Matthew's current state was similar to that of a character in an online game. His HP was halved and his mana was almost depleted. However, he was still able to go on a rampage. But India's appearance and help Matthew restrain the enemy gave him time to recover his magic. As Matthew fought, he glanced at Qin Zhao not far away. Noticing Matthew's gaze, Qin Zhao smiled and waved his hand. Matthew was not just a simple monk. As the main target of the church's training, he had a meticulous mind. Soon, he realized that there was something wrong with Qin Zhao. Of course, there was something wrong with Delia too. But soon, the battle between Matthew and India ended. In the end, they retreated. The situation was already developing in a direction that they could not control. A few more groups of people joined in. All of them were spiritualists contaminated by the red gas. Dozens of spiritualists and the Scarlet Defilers had turned the place into a crazy battlefield. They attacked each other like wild beasts, as if the other was their mortal enemy. The casualties kept increasing. Matthew was not in a good state. After a series of battles, he was extremely weak now. "Look at you. Can't you just watch like me? Why did you have to join in the fun and end up like this?" Matthew smiled bitterly and sat on the ground. He glanced at his partner who was even weaker than him. Then he looked at Qin Zhao. "Chen, can you tell me the truth? You have nothing to do with all this." "I promise you, I have nothing to do with it." Qin Zhao shrugged. "What about her?" Matthew looked at Delia again. Delia turned her head. "She knows more than I do. Most of what I know is from her. She probably hasn't told me many things. If you think you're capable, you can try to make her talk." Qin Zhao nodded. Delia nodded. "You're right. I've already told you everything I know. I'm not hiding anything. Just from this, I can say for sure that you're still hiding many things, at least some key information," Qin Zhao said. "Even if you say that, I can't give you more information. I've already told you everything I know." After a while, Matthew stood up again. "Chen, we have to leave," Matthew said. "Their battle is about to spread here. If we stay here, we'll be dragged back into the battlefield. If they did not leave now, they really would not be able to. Plus, there were 4 partners on the ground. Once the battle spread here, Matthew would not even be able to protect them. Help me carry one, I'll carry 2. Miss Indelia, help me carry one of my companions as well." "No need to be so troublesome," Qin Zhao said. As he spoke, darkness spread out from under his feet. The dark lava was like liquid. It lifted Bo onto, Angie, Fee, and Orlando up. "Let's go," Qin Zhao said. "Is this dark magic?" "It's convenient for you to use it like this," Matthew said in a relaxed tone. What? Do you want to try purifying me? Forget it. I'm in such a bad state and you're not either. If there's a chance in the future, let's spar again. Miss India, shouldn't you lead the way and take us to a safe place? Chen Zhao asked, looking at India. Why do you think there's a safe place here? You should have arrived here earlier than any of us, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Your strength isn't enough for you to move around here safely, so you must have a safe hiding place. Otherwise, you would have been dead long ago. Chen Zhao nodded. Although I arrived here earlier than you, I didn't find any place to hide. The reason why I haven't been attacked is because my power comes from the same source as those scarlet defilers. They treat me as one of their kind, and I'm not affected by the scarlet gas. Chapter 2276. The scarlet battlefield was huge. Judging from the number of skeletons here, there were more than 1 million dead. Were there more than 1 million people who participated in this battle? Chen Zhao asked curiously. If you count all the units from both sides, there were indeed more than 1 million, but most of them weren't humans. Oh. Were there other races? Magical beasts, dragons, elves, demons, and other races, as well as humanoids, all participated in the battle. There were only 120,000 holy crusaders among the humans. But there are more than 120,000 human skeletons here. Most of the skeletons here seem to be human. Most of the human skeletons here are actually an army of skeletons summoned by hundreds of necromancers. That battle should be the largest in the Western spiritual world in the past 1,000 years. Didn't the Eastern spiritual world participate? Chen Zhao asked curiously. The East and the West should have interacted with each other in that era, right? Do you think the Eastern spiritual world is peaceful? Fine, every family has its own difficulties. Chen Zhao shrugged. How do we leave now? If we go in this direction, we'll see a cave that leads to the surface. Along the way, there are 548 holy swords. They were collected from all over the world in that era. Almost every sword has the power to subdue demons and expel evil. They contain holy power. The 548 holy swords were set up to prevent the scarlet defilers from escaping, Delia said. Delia said, however, those 548 holy swords can't distinguish between friend and foe. As long as a living creature approaches that place, it will be attacked by all the holy swords. That's our only way out, but if we go there, we'll definitely die. Matthew turned to look at Delia. 548 holy swords? The Holy Dynasty. That's right. The 548 holy swords form the Holy Dynasty. What Holy Dynasty? Chen Zhao asked curiously. The Holy Dynasty is actually the name of this magic array. This magic array also has another name, the 548 legend. Legend has it that in the 3rd century AD, there was a dynasty called the Adusi dynasty. The king of the Adusi dynasty was cruel and heartless and disobeyed the will of God. So God sent 548 angels to destroy the Adusi dynasty in one night. They transformed into 548 holy swords and forever guarded that land blessed by evil. Matthew said, in fact, the truth is not that the angels descended, but that the church suppressed the Adusi dynasty. They used 548 legendaries, and after that war, they got a new name, the Holy Dynasty. In other words, if we want to leave this place and return to the surface, we have to pass through the 548th legend. Pass through the magic array that can destroy an entire country. You could say that, India said. Is there no other way? Matthew pondered for a while and said, maybe I can give it a try, but I'm not completely sure. Is there no other way out? If he didn't have to, he really didn't want to face these ancient nuclear weapons. A magic array that could destroy an entire country. No matter how small the country was, it was still a country. Most importantly, Chen Zhao was in a very bad state right now. Oh. Speaking of which, you're also from the church. You should have a way to crack the 548th legend, right? I can't crack it. Matthew shook his head. I don't have the ability to crack the magic array. What I can try now is to not be attacked by it. The underground space was more than 10,000 square kilometers, almost the size of 2 large cities combined. Because of the environment, they basically couldn't see the end. The group walked for about 2 hours. Chen Zhao finally saw the edge. The wall before them was probably thousands of square kilometers in one direction. At the bottom of the wall, they could see a huge cave. It's there, India said, pointing at the cave. I can feel that there's a holy aura hidden there, Matthew said. I can understand the holy dynasty, and I can also understand the number 548, but why is it called legendary? Every holy sword is a legend, Matthew said. Every holy sword's owner has an illustrious and legendary past. The moment they entered the cave, they saw countless skeletons of unusual creatures. A silver sword was stabbed into the rock in the middle of the skeletons. Even though it had been here for thousands of years, it was still eye-catching. Everyone's first impression when they saw the silver sword was that it was a solemn elder. It was stern and dignified, staring at the exit without a smile. All living beings that approached this place were under its gaze. The piles of skeletons around them had all died under the silver sword. Silver Dawn, Matthew whispered, his face full of reverence and seriousness. You know this sword. In ancient times, before God revealed his divine might, everything in the world was in chaos. People shivered in the dark, and barbarism and death continued to spread and breed. A warrior forged a weapon for himself to split the chaos and slay the darkness. This warrior was the first paladin, Anmistafun, and the weapon he forged and wielded was the Silver Dawn. Really? It's a pretty sword, Chen Zhao commented. But at that moment, Silver Daybreak suddenly flew out of the rock and stabbed at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao immediately raised his palm to block. Hiss, Chen Zhao's palm was instantly pierced. The tip of the sword was only half an inch away from his forehead. Chen Zhao's eyes widened, even though he was suppressing his power in his body. Even though he was suppressing his power inside his body, his constitution wouldn't weaken because of this. Not to mention cold weapons, even the most high-end firearms might not be able to hurt him. But now, his palm was pierced by a sword. However, the Silver Dawn was also stuck in the middle of Chen Zhao's palm, unable to move forward. Chen Zhao didn't underestimate the magic formation, but he didn't pay much attention to one of the swords. But now, his defense had been broken by a sword. Matthew and the others were shocked too. They didn't know what to do. On the other hand, Chen Zhao used his pierced hand to grab the sword hilt as a shield. The Silver Dawn immediately tried to break free. However, it clearly couldn't compete with Chen Zhao in terms of strength. Chen Zhao grabbed it tightly. It was painful, but he didn't want the Silver Dawn to cut his palm open. The two were in a contest of strength. The Silver Dawn clearly didn't want to give up. Chen Zhao also didn't want to wait for death. Chapter 2277. Chen Zhao grabbed the hilt with his other hand and pulled hard. Although the Silver Daybreak wasn't controlled by anyone, it wasn't weak at all. Chen Zhao couldn't use his full power now, but it was still inhuman. The sword before him actually made Chen Zhao feel a bit strained. However, Chen Zhao still pulled the sword out bit by bit. Finally, the Silver Daybreak was pulled out. The Silver Daybreak immediately struggled violently, trying to break free from Chen Zhao's hand. Chen Zhao stabbed the blade into the ground. At the same time, he gripped the hilt tightly. "Chen, are you okay?" Matthew and the others hurried to Chen Zhao. "I'm fine, but this sword is really fierce." Even though Chen Zhao had stabbed the silver daybreak into the ground and was still holding the hilt, the sword was still vibrating. "Didn't you say you have a way?" Chen Zhao asked. "I'll try." Matthew wasn't too sure either. Matthew reached out to grab the hilt of the silver daybreak. Chen Zhao let go of it. Matthew's power of holy light started to come into contact with the silver daybreak's power. The silver daybreak didn't seem so intense anymore. Matthew heaved a long sigh, but the moment he let go of the hilt, the silver daybreak suddenly rose from the ground and stabbed at Matthew. At this time, Matthew's condition was extremely poor, and the attack came too suddenly. He didn't even have time to defend. The silver daybreak was about to stab Matthew. Chen Zhao grabbed the hilt so that the silver daybreak couldn't go any further. Matthew looked at the tip of the sword that was less than half an inch away from him. Suddenly, he broke out in a cold sweat. "Looks like you failed." Matthew looked at Chen Zhao helplessly. "Sorry, in that case, I can only destroy the sword," Chen Zhao said. It was impossible to control the sword anymore. The sword struggled wildly in Chen Zhao's hand. The moment Chen Zhao let go, the silver daybreak would cause damage. Matthew hesitated, but in the end, he nodded helplessly. To Matthew, destroying the silver daybreak was a blasphemous act. But he had no other choice now. The silver daybreak sensed Chen Zhao's murderous intent and struggled even more violently. But without anyone controlling it, the silver daybreak was like rootless duckweed. Chen Zhao suddenly raised the silver daybreak and struck the rock. Clang! For a moment, sparks flew everywhere. The silver daybreak did not break, but it did make a dent. In an instant, the silver daybreak's spirituality weakened. Chen Zhao raised the sword again and slashed down. Clang! Sparks flew in all directions as the sword broke. A massive amount of divine power gushed out from the broken sword. Everyone had different expressions. Only Chen Zhao was expressionless. "Chen, how's your hand?" Chen Zhao raised his palm and looked at it. "It's almost done." Matthew saw that Chen Zhao's palm, which should have been pierced, had already healed. Matthew's face was full of surprise. "What kind of magic is this?" "No," Chen Zhao said. "I have extraordinary self-healing abilities." "Your self-healing ability is so strong. How many injuries did you suffer before?" "I can't even heal myself." Matthew still thought that Chen Zhao's previous weakness was due to his injuries. Chen Zhao shrugged and didn't explain further. One sword is already so hard to deal with. There are still 547 swords behind us. If they're all like this, we'll probably die along the way. Maybe the next sword will kill all of us. Matthew's expression was serious. It was just as Chen Zhao had said. They weren't facing just one or two enemies now. It was a magic formation that could destroy an entire country. Even if they destroyed one sword now, it didn't mean anything. As long as the eye of the formation wasn't destroyed, the magic formation wouldn't disappear. "We don't have to face all the holy swords," Delia said. Delia said, "This magic array has a very wide range. Right now, we should only be in one of the branches of the magic array. The Holy Dynasty's method of coverage is centered around the core of the magic array, and then spread out in lines. If we go along this cave, we might encounter some holy swords along the way. However, as long as we can survive for a while, find the core of the magic array, and destroy it, then the holy swords behind will become masterless objects. They will no longer be controlled by the magic array, and will not take the initiative to attack us. But in our current state, Matthew said, even if we face a single-digit number of holy swords, we might still get injured. He wasn't afraid of taking risks, but he wasn't alone now. With the team's current state, only he and Chen Zhao had a certain amount of combat power. Both he and Chen Zhao were injured. He even felt that Chen Zhao had recovered quickly after being injured. It seemed like he'd recovered, but he must have used up a lot of magic and energy. Perhaps he would be fighting alone for the rest of the journey. The dangerous journey ahead would likely result in the loss of members of the current team. Maybe we should retreat for now instead of advancing recklessly. Matthew's suggestion was undoubtedly the most conservative and also the steadiest. They could wait until the others recovered a certain amount of combat power. Or wait until they recovered their strength before thinking about coming here. No, it's still too early to retreat, Chen Zhao said. No matter what, it's just our guess. Maybe it'll be easier later. Even if we encounter big trouble later, we can still choose to retreat. I think so too, India agreed. Okay, since you insist, we'll continue. Matthew had no choice but to agree. The only thing he could do now was pray that their team wouldn't encounter more trouble. After walking for less than 10 minutes, they realized that the skeletons along the way had increased again. And there were many, many more. Countless mutant skeletons were scattered on the ground. A long sword floated in the air before them. The skeletons below had already gathered into a pyramid. The moment everyone appeared in front of the sword, the seemingly simple and unadorned sword suddenly erupted with a power as strong as a storm. Without any hesitation, the long sword slashed down with unparalleled sword aura. Oh no! Careful! Matthew cried. Chen Zhao suddenly jumped to the side, barely dodging the sword aura. Such powerful sword aura! Matthew exclaimed. What's the origin of this sword? Judging from the sword's shape, it should be a Chinese sword. It has a thick sword aura, but that's all I can see. I can't give you any more information. Chapter 2278. The sword was clearly from China. Exquisite patterns were carved on the blade. It didn't look like it was used to compete with others. Instead, it looked more like an ornament. However, the sword was surrounded by a righteous aura. Everyone was suffocated by the sword's awe-inspiring aura. Chen Zhao frowned. The sword's aura was strong, but it was still within his acceptable range. However, the sword intent contained in the sword made Chen Zhao feel that it was very similar to the power that suppressed him. The few times he'd been attacked for no reason, Chen Zhao had felt a similar aura. Just then, everyone's exposed skin suddenly felt like it was being sliced. Matthew touched his cheek and realized that it was bleeding. Retreat! Retreat! We're enveloped by its sword aura. Chen Zhao had the same feeling, but his skin wasn't cut open. It was more like a dull knife scratching his skin. Matthew and Delia both retreated. Only Chen Zhao stood where he was. Chen! Come back! Chen Zhao didn't move, as if he hadn't heard Matthew's shout. The sword, which had been hovering vertically in the air, suddenly pointed at Chen Zhao. Chen, danger! Matthew shouted anxiously. Chen Zhao's power was increasing bit by bit. The moment Chen Zhao's power rose to that limit, that strange yet familiar aura appeared again as expected. However, it didn't attack Chen Zhao directly this time. Instead, it attached itself to the sword. Confusion appeared on Chen Zhao's face. That power was too strange. It actually knew how to use other carriers. Just then, the sword's aura suddenly multiplied and stabbed at Chen Zhao. Hiss! With a piercing sound, the sword pierced through Chen Zhao's chest. This sword strike was too fast and too sudden. It also contained supreme sword aura. Its sharpness exceeded Chen Zhao's expectations. Chen! Matthew panicked. Chen Zhao was one of their teammates who could barely fight. Plus, he'd gotten along well with Chen Zhao along the way. Both personally and professionally, he didn't want anything to happen to Chen Zhao. It obviously didn't feel good to have a sword pierce through the chest. In particular, the sword aura on the sword was wreaking havoc in Chen Zhao's body. The sword's damage was similar to Chen Zhao's Black Trident. Ever since it was upgraded by Old Turtle, the Black Trident also had additional damage. As long as one was injured by the Black Trident, even if it was just a scratch, the Black Trident would inject the power of extermination into the wound, directly destroying the other party's life force. This sword chi followed the same principle, but its energy level was clearly a level lower than the Black Trident's. Moreover, in terms of weight, the two were not on the same level. There were a few Old Turtle cores embedded in the Black Trident. Chen Zhao could only activate the first one. Even so, the power contained and released by the Black Trident was even greater than Chen Zhao's. Chen Zhao didn't let the sword chi continue wreaking havoc in his body. Instead, he drew his sword. Unlike the first Silver Dawn, the strength of this long sword was not very strong. Earlier, when the silver daybreak pierced his palm, he could still feel the heaviness. The sword was extremely sharp, but Chen Zhao felt like he was floating. Of course, one of the reasons was that Chen Zhao's power had exceeded that limit. But the moment it was pulled out of his chest, Chen Zhao's palm was empty and the sword left his hand. Chen Zhao was somewhat stunned. The sword seemed to have turned into a beam of light and escaped. "Chen, how are you? Are you all right?" Matthew immediately went to Chen Zhao and asked about his injuries. "What? I'm fine." Chen Zhao blocked Matthew's careless hands. "Are you really fine? You were pierced through the chest by that sword. It's a real chill." Chen Zhao ignored Matthew's question. His gaze returned to the sword. Right now, the sword was hovering in the distance, pointing at Chen Zhao. The sword aura it emitted was getting stronger. There seemed to be an invisible figure continuously injecting power into it. For Chen Zhao, even if he was pierced, as long as his heart was not hurt, the damage would be very limited. The sword aura it left in his body would soon disappear like rootless duckweed. However, if he allowed the sword to continue to grow stronger, it was very likely that he would really hurt himself. At this moment, the blade of the long sword began to reveal a pair of green dragon chi. The green dragon aura coiled around the sword, making it even more extraordinary. Seeing this, Matthew immediately exclaimed, "It's Green Cloud. You know this sword?" Chen Zhao asked, glancing at Matthew from the corner of his eye. "You don't know about your famous Chinese sword?" Matthew asked, surprised. "I don't. Is there a famous Chinese sword called Green Cloud?" "Green Cloud is known as the sword of the most righteous killer," Matthew said. "The owner of the sword existed in the 8th century, which is the middle of the Tang dynasty. The owner was an assassin, but the people he killed were all people who deserved to die. This sword killed 999 people who deserved to die, not one more, not one less. In the end, it became this legendary sword, a sword of justice forged with the blood of evil people." "Fine," Chen Zhao said. "Maybe it used to be a great sword with a great master, but we're not people who deserve to die now. I don't think I deserve to die either. I don't want to die either, so it's not the time for us to admire its glory." In Chen Zhao's opinion, it and its master were both great. But they were people who were far away from this era. No matter how great they were, Chen Zhao could not just sit and wait for death to respect them. Just then, there was the sound of something slicing through the air. Green Cloud attacked again. It was different from Silver Daybreak, which made a huge noise as soon as it started. Green Cloud's attack was not only sharp, but also restrained. It looked like it was just a sword thrown at him. But in reality, Green Cloud carried a powerful sword aura. Green Cloud was about to reach him. Chen Zhao raised his fist and punched out from a dozen meters away. This time, he would not give it a chance to get close. This was also the first time Chen Zhao refused to fight his opponent in close combat. As a physical body, fighting a weapon in close combat. No matter what the final result was, he would be the one at a disadvantage. The moment the fist hit Green Cloud, it dispersed. Qing Xiao, on the other hand, was sent flying. However, Qing Xiao flew up again, and it was even stronger than before. Chen Zhao frowned. It seemed that he had to destroy Green Cloud to end this battle. Otherwise, the invisible enemy would keep strengthening Green Cloud and use it as a carrier. This change in strength was enough to threaten Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao did not like this feeling of being passive. Chapter 2279. Destroy it. That was Chen Zhao's only thought. Since this power made Chen Zhao feel threatened and dangerous, he wouldn't let it continue growing. But Green Sky didn't approach him this time. It seemed to have a certain level of intelligence. After suffering once, it would learn to be flexible. It also changed its attack method. Green Sky flashed and a beam of sword aura slashed down at Chen Zhao's head. The sword aura looked ordinary, but Chen Zhao couldn't ignore the power it contained. Chen Zhao instantly threw out dozens of fist shadows that collided with the sword aura. The moment the sword aura collided with the fist shadows, space seemed to shatter too. The sword aura was shattered by the fist shadows, turning into countless small sword auras that spread in all directions. Everyone was forced back by the countless small sword auras. The surrounding ground and rock walls were cut into pieces by the sharp sword auras. Everyone gasped. They were at the edge of the battlefield. The small sword auras were already too much for them to handle. Not to mention Chen Zhao, who was at the center of the battlefield. Matthew was a bit surprised. He'd had a high estimation of Chen Zhao's strength. After all, he felt that since Chen Zhao could participate in the Battle of Holy Glory as an individual, he definitely wouldn't be weak. But he was still injured. Although he acknowledged Chen Zhao, he didn't think Chen Zhao was very strong. But now, he realized that Chen Zhao's strength was extraordinary. At least, he wasn't much weaker than his normal state. The sword auras had already dissipated, but the next moment, they returned to Green Sky. Chen Zhao realized that Green Sky's aura had strengthened again. No way. If it continued to strengthen like this, Chen Zhao would really have to use even more power. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared on Green Firmament's blade. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. It seemed that even a legendary sword like this had a limit. As a carrier, Green Sky was already very strong. At least when Chen Zhao exceeded the limit, the Green Cloud could still hurt him. But it wasn't strong enough. At least, it was facing Chen Zhao. As a carrier, the power it could withstand had already reached its limit. After this attack, it would be destroyed no matter what. But the power of this attack probably couldn't be compared to the previous attacks. Suddenly, Green Sky flew through the air. All the sword auras were restrained in the blade. The speed of this sword was so fast that it was hard for the naked eye to catch it. The blade of the sword became the color of a soldering iron under the friction of the air. Moreover, in the process of shooting over, the sword body was constantly peeling off pieces of fragments. Before it could reach Chen Zhao, Green Cloud had completely dissipated. However, its attacks did not stop. What Green Cloud dissipated was only its body. Under the condensation of the unparalleled sword intent, the enormous sword chi was more terrifying than ever before. He couldn't block it. Chen Zhao's eyes hardened. Chen Zhao rarely dodged an enemy's attack. Most of the time, he chose to take the attacks head-on. But this time, Chen Zhao really felt that he couldn't block it. Green Firmament's attack went from tangible to intangible. Not only did it not dissipate the attack, but it also became even fiercer. However, Chen Zhao was locked on by the sword chi. He couldn't dodge it even if he wanted to. Chen Zhao retracted his arms and dark lava suddenly appeared in front of him. But in the next instant, the black screen formed by the dark magma was instantly broken. The sword chi didn't slow down at all as it pressed toward Chen Zhao. Although the dark magma contained a huge amount of power, its defense was not outstanding. But the moment it was broken, it suddenly shrank back and fused into Chen Zhao's body. Chen Zhao's skin turned from normal to inky black. At the same time, there were some red lines. Hiss! In an instant, the sword chi pierced through Chen Zhao's chest. Different from the piercing of the blade last time, the sword chi's penetration was sharper than the physical attack from before. When the sword chi pierced Chen Zhao's chest, all the sword chi exploded in his body. Pfft! Chen Zhao spat out a mouthful of blood and his body swayed. Chen, are you okay? Matthew hurried forward and threw a holy light spell at Chen Zhao. But the holy light spell didn't even cause a ripple on Chen Zhao's body. It was directly disintegrated by his elemental constitution. How come your resistance to holy light spells is so high? Matthew looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. I'm very resistant to all spells, Chen Zhao said calmly. Chen Zhao didn't have time to explain to Matthew now. His injuries were secondary. The main thing was that the sword chi hadn't been expelled and was still wreaking havoc in his body. Just then, Chen Zhao spat out another mouthful of blood. Just 2 holy swords are enough to make us lose our ability to fight, Matthew said solemnly. There are still 546 holy swords left. If every holy sword has such power, we'll probably all die here. No, even 10 holy swords can make us die without a complete corpse. Chen Zhao didn't reply. He didn't care what Matthew decided. If Matthew wanted to continue walking, Chen Zhao would accompany him. Although he'd been injured in the battle with Green Sky, he could recover instantly after dispersing the sword chi. As for the following battles, if every holy sword could use this mysterious power to fight against him, even Chen Zhao wasn't confident. However, if it was only at the level of the first Silver Daybreak, Chen Zhao wouldn't be afraid even if all 500 holy swords attacked him together. However, Silver Daybreak didn't use that mysterious power. Since Green Sky could use it, it meant that not every one of the 500 holy swords could make Chen Zhao uncomfortable. Let's continue forward and see, Indelia said. If we really can't do it, we'll turn back. Matthew was also hesitant when he heard Indelia's words. He turned to Chen Zhao and asked, Chen, what do you think? I don't care, Chen Zhao said calmly. If you want to continue, I'll accompany you. But your injuries, my injuries have been suppressed. It's fine. Then, okay, let's continue and see if there's a chance. Matthew looked at his 4 teammates. How's your recovery? If you can move, don't keep lying on the black liquid. In Matthew's opinion, Chen Zhao had fused the dark lava into his body during the battle with Green Sky to strengthen himself. However, he'd left Angie, Bo Untu, Alterando, and Fail lying on the dark lava. That was why Chen Zhao was so heavily injured and even spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. If Chen Zhao had gone all out just now, he might not have been injured so badly. He didn't know that Chen Zhao hadn't actually used most of his power. Chapter 2280. I can move by myself. Angie stood up. She was too embarrassed to continue lying on the dark lava and let Qin Zhao carry her. Bo, Untu, Fei, and Orlando were the same. Although they were still very weak, they could still move. Moreover, Qin Zhao had been injured not long ago. How could they let an injured person carry them forward? Qin Zhao didn't insist that they continue to rest. Although they were in the same team, they should support each other. It didn't mean that Qin Zhao was willing to let them lie on the ground while he fought and killed. Not long after entering the cave, everyone felt a wave of coldness in front of them. The bone-chilling coldness made everyone shiver uncontrollably. "This coldness isn't normal," Matthew said. "What do you think?" "I'm fine," Qin Zhao said. Delia, on the other hand, used her own magical power to protect her body, preventing the cold from attacking her. As for Angie, Bo, Untu, Fei, and Orlando, their bodies weren't in good condition. Moreover, they could only use very little magic, so they basically couldn't resist the cold. The four were already shivering from the cold, but they still gritted their teeth and persevered. Matthew looked at his four teammates in this state and cast a spell on them to help them dispel the cold air on their bodies. "This coldness seems to be attacking my soul," Matthew said. Even Qin Zhao could feel that this coldness wasn't normal. The activity of his cells also decreased in this coldness. Of course, neither Qin Zhao nor Matthew could pose a real threat with the cold air alone. However, the source of the coldness was probably the holy sword they were about to face. The holy sword at the back was definitely an ice-type holy sword. After walking for a few more minutes, they still hadn't seen the third holy sword. Instead, they saw a world of ice. They also saw the collection of the holy sword. In this world made of solid ice, there were countless ice sculptures as well. Every ice sculpture here was vivid and lifelike, as if they had a life of their own. Of course, they'd been frozen when they were alive. That was why they looked so lifelike. There were humans, mutants, magical beasts, and scarlet polluters among the ice sculptures. All of them had despair and panic on their faces. The postures and movements of these creatures were surprisingly uniform. All of them were running away. Some were trying their best to escape in the direction they came from. Some of them looked back as they ran. At this time, a wave of ice suddenly surged in front of them. The white mist with extreme chill spread out crazily. Everyone was caught off guard by this wave of ice. "Let's go! Let's go!" Matthew exclaimed. But this wave of ice came too suddenly, too fast. It was so fast that no one had time to prepare. Everyone was running for their lives. But the wave of ice had already caught up to everyone. In an instant, it covered everyone's bodies. Oh no! Matthew tried to use magic to protect himself. But he found that his magic was completely ineffective. Under this extreme chill, it was as if all magic had been frozen. Qin Zhao also realized that he couldn't do anything. Soon, his body was completely frozen by the chill. What a frightening chill. However, even though the cold air had frozen Qin Zhao could not move at all. But Qin Zhao's body was almost unharmed. Qin Zhao's muscles tightened. The ice on his body started to crack and then shards of ice fell off. Soon, Qin Zhao was freed from the ice. Whoosh! Qin Zhao turned his head and looked at the people behind him. Everyone, including Matthew, was frozen in ice. But they weren't dead. At least not for now. But in their current state, it wouldn't be long before their souls returned to the horizon. Just like the other ice sculptures. The probability of a frozen person coming back to life was too low in movies and TV shows. In real life, it was almost impossible to come back to life after being frozen. The low temperature would kill cells and destroy body functions. It could even destroy the physical structure of the human body. Chen Zhao was about to save them when a murderous aura attacked him from behind. Chen Zhao turned around and punched. It was a solid punch. But when Chen Zhao looked closely, he realized that it was a ground full of shattered ice. Chen Zhao wiped off the ice shards on his fist, a confused expression on his face. Was it an ice sculpture that attacked him? Just as Chen Zhao was wondering, there was another clear murderous aura behind him. This time, Chen Zhao didn't choose to fight back. Instead, he jumped to the side and dodged the attack. A huge ice axe smashed into the ground. Chen Zhao was attacked by another ice sculpture. An ice sculpture of a humanoid creature was chasing after Chen Zhao with a pair of huge ice axes. Chen Zhao kept dodging and retreating. The ice sculpture posed no threat to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't choose to destroy it immediately. He wanted to be sure that the series of attacks were the sculpture's own actions, or that it was being controlled. Soon, Chen Zhao realized that the ice sculpture had indeed been notified by someone. The sculpture didn't have any aura of a living being. It also didn't have a soul. So, it couldn't have its own consciousness. So, it was just a puppet that was being controlled to attack Chen Zhao. Just as Chen Zhao was dodging unhurriedly, another ice sculpture attacked him. The two ice sculptures waved their weapons recklessly and attacked Chen Zhao crazily. There was no difficulty in destroying these two ice sculptures. But Chen Zhao still couldn't find who was controlling them. Where was it hiding? Chen Zhao suddenly stopped. He raised his arms and threw two punches at the two ice sculptures that were coming at him. The two ice sculptures crumbled instantly. Two beams of blue light shot out from the remains of the two ice sculptures. The blue light was very faint and the aura was also very weak. The two beams of blue light merged into one and entered one of the ice sculptures at the same time. Soon, the ice sculpture moved again. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. Then, he threw countless punches in all directions. The blue light seemed to be attached to the ice sculptures and controlled their movements. So, it's this thing, Chen Zhao murmured. At the same time, he punched out countless punches. The punches spread in all directions. Countless ice sculptures were shattered by Chen Zhao. The ice sculpture attached to the blue light was also shattered. Just then, a lot of blue light escaped from the ice shards. At the same time, they fused together and turned into a crystal-clear sword. The sword looked as if it was made of ice crystals. It seemed to be one of the holy swords. Chen Zhao increased his output and killed all the ice sculptures. Chapter 2281. There were many ice sculptures in the area. However, they couldn't withstand Chen Zhao's large-scale attack. Ice shards flew everywhere and mist filled the entire area. It covered Chen Zhao's vision. Because his senses were restricted, he couldn't know what was going on around him. There were also the ice sculptures of Matthew and the others behind him. Matthew and the others were in danger, but they weren't dead yet. So, Chen Zhao had to stay beside them and protect them. As for the thing that could control the ice sculptures, it lost all the ice sculptures and also lost its target. However, its true form should be one of the holy swords. Suddenly, an ice sword shot out of the mist. The ice sword's angle of attack was tricky, but it didn't leave Chen Zhao's line of sight. So, Chen Zhao didn't find it hard to deal with. He casually punched. But to Chen Zhao's surprise, the ice sword wasn't solid. Instead, it dissipated into mist. The next moment, another ice sword shot out of the mist. This time, Chen Zhao couldn't detect the attack in advance. But the ice sword couldn't break through his defense either. But the ice sword turned into mist again and dissipated. Chen Zhao frowned. The ice sword wasn't powerful. But it was rather troublesome. It seemed that he was wrong. Chen Zhao had thought that the holy swords needed the ice sculptures as carriers to attack. But in reality, the holy swords didn't need ice sculptures. Even the ice shards that Chen Zhao had shattered could still be used as carriers by the holy swords. It was just that the method of attack had changed. The ice swords formed from cold air weren't the holy swords' true form. Even if Chen Zhao shattered them 1,000 or 10,000 times, they could reform and attack Chen Zhao again. Chen Zhao ignored the ice sword's attack. Instead, he sank into deep thought. After a few attacks, the ice sword's power had greatly increased. But to Chen Zhao, there wasn't any substantial difference. Hitting someone with a cotton stick and hitting someone with a sponge felt the same to a normal person. But this endless feeling wasn't pleasant. Especially since Chen Zhao's temper wasn't good. Normal methods of attack were obviously meaningless. Then, he'd use another method. Chen Zhao wrapped Matthew and the others in dark lava. At the same time, he raised his right arm and opened the Eye of the Thunder. In the Eye of the Thunder, Chen Zhao had accumulated an enormous amount of lightning power. Even though Chen Zhao would occasionally use lightning to attack, Chen Zhao didn't care. However, compared to the energy stored in the Eye of the Thunder, it was nothing. Chen Zhao had only used 1/10,000th of the total amount. Chen Zhao's right arm was already flashing with electricity. In an instant, Chen Zhao released all the lightning he had stored. Bang! Tens of thousands of electric arcs shattered the air and spread in all directions without any pattern. Especially when it hit the ice mist, it already had an extremely high level of moisture poison. After the electric arc entered the ice fog, it turned from an electric arc into a net. The densely packed electrical net directly evaporated the moisture in the air. When the electric arc completely evaporated all the ice mist, the air became fresh. A sparkling and translucent ice sword fell to the ground. This time, it was not made of ice mist, but solid. Chen Zhao picked up the ice sword. Although he did not know the name of the sword. However, the crystal-like appearance was quite attractive. Moreover, this sword wasn't directly destroyed like the silver daybreak and green cloud. The crystal sword was still intact. So, after flipping it around a few times, Chen Zhao put the crystal sword into his personal space. Putting away the dark lava, Chen Zhao looked at the frozen Matthew and the others. Chen Zhao placed his palm on Matthew's frozen body. With a light push, a crack immediately appeared on the ice on Matthew's body. The next moment, the ice suddenly exploded. Then, Matthew broke free. Chen, what's going on? You look really messed up. Chen Zhao wasn't injured again. It was just that when Matthew broke free, the ice shards had damaged his clothes a lot. That was why Chen Zhao looked so messed up. It's nothing. They're also frozen. You can do whatever you want. Where's the holy sword? Did you fight the third holy sword again? No wonder your clothes are torn. Matthew looked at everyone's ice sculptures and shouted, "Sunlight." This was the most suitable spell for the current situation that Matthew could think of. Although the power of sunlight was very weak, and it did not have the effect of healing or purifying. However, it could melt the ice on the others. Not long after, everyone was also rescued from the ice. But they all felt different degrees of weakness. This made the team, which was already weak, even more tired. Chen, I think we should retreat first and think about it. To him, Chen Zhao was already at the end of his rope. After all, Chen Zhao had destroyed the 3 holy swords all by himself. Plus, Chen Zhao was injured. After this battle, Chen Zhao was injured once. With his current condition, he definitely couldn't continue, okay? Chen Zhao nodded. Everyone understood the need to retreat. Only Delia wasn't happy at all. Along the way, Delia had been asking for help. She kept encouraging them to continue. But at this moment, everyone was exhausted. Even though they'd only dealt with 3 out of the 548 holy swords. It had already made the team, which was already full of injuries, even more difficult to move forward. Plus, there were more holy swords waiting for them after this. She hoped that Chen Zhao and the others could take her away. But right now, she had no choice. When they'd come, they'd been careful with each step. But when they left, they didn't have to worry so much. Soon, they were out of the cave. Everyone was a bit addicted to the air outside, which was covered in magma. The air in the tunnel was fresher and purer than outside. But unknown dangers were hidden in the fresh air. Everyone would rather move around in the outside world than continue to enter the cave, which was dangerous for them. But Matthew wasn't happy at all. After all, they'd already suffered heavy losses from just facing 3 holy swords. Plus, there were more holy swords later. Matthew didn't think that their team could face the 548 holy swords. Chen, how's your injury? It's all right, Chen Zhao said calmly. He didn't have time to care about the others. Because the mysterious attack appeared again and headed straight for Chen Zhao. Boom, this attack was more powerful than any of the previous ones. Chapter 2282. Chen Zhao was sent flying, right in front of Matthew. Before Matthew could react, he felt an enormous force pierce through his eyes. Chen Zhao was sent flying into the mountain wall. The entire wall was covered in spiderweb-like cracks. Chen! Matthew hurriedly rushed over and lifted the stone. He saw Chen Zhao lying on the ground. Chen Zhao shook his head and pushed the stone away. Then, he sat on the ground and panted. Matthew felt that Chen Zhao's aura was extremely small. He thought that Chen Zhao was heavily injured. Chen, what exactly is attacking you? I don't know. I don't understand at all. Ever since I was transported here, I've been being attacked by unknown things. You don't even know who attacked you. I don't know. Chen Zhao shook his head. Every attack seemed to appear out of thin air. Chen Zhao's face was blank. He didn't even know who it was. This made him wonder if it was a human attacking him. Matthew didn't think too much. He just thought that there was an enemy nearby. Chen Zhao most likely couldn't fight anymore. There was still an expert hiding nearby. This made Matthew even more worried. They could hide in the surroundings without a sound. Once it was disadvantageous to them. Especially when Chen Zhao was attacked like this. As long as it was aimed at them, they would probably die on the spot. Matthew didn't think that he or his teammates had the ability to take such an attack head-on. Even an enhancer like Chen Zhao was weakened to this extent after being attacked like this, let alone people like them. I don't need you to help me. Chen Zhao pushed away Matthew's hand. I'm not that weak yet. Chen Zhao wasn't weak now. He was just suppressing his power to the extreme. However, even if he suppressed his strength to the extreme, his physical body was still at a monstrous level. However, to Matthew, Chen Zhao was just being stubborn. He was already extremely weak, but he still wanted to save face and suffer. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. He didn't know who had attacked him. But after he left the cave, this inexplicable hostility appeared again. This made Chen Zhao more and more suspicious. It wasn't someone who was targeting him. It was the world here. More accurately, it was the seal here. Perhaps he was treated as a target by the seal here. Thinking about it this way, it made sense. Since it was sealed here, and under such a grand formation, it was impossible for it to escape. There was no need to doubt his strength. Therefore, Chen Zhao felt that the seal might have misjudged him and thought that he was the thing that was sealed. This was also very likely. After all, as long as Chen Zhao exceeded that limit, the attack would come. This might be the threshold set by the seal itself. Matthew's heart was heavy now. Apart from him, the rest of the team seemed to have no more combat power left. Delia wasn't injured, but from her previous performance, she didn't know how to fight very well, so her combat strength wasn't very high. We need some food. At this time, everyone was very tired, and the most effective way to relieve their fatigue was to eat and sleep. And in this kind of environment, if they were to sleep, they might never wake up again. Can you find food here? Chen Zhao asked Matthew. As long as it's not a human or humanoid, it's edible, Matthew said calmly. I found that some of the skeletons here are clearly different from humans. Matthew was from the church, but that didn't mean he was a saint. When needed, he could use all the conditions he could to keep himself and his teammates alive. Eating magical beasts or mutants wasn't something he couldn't accept. He'd eaten them in the past, and he'd eaten quite a lot. Then go. Be careful, Chen Zhao said calmly. It's just that. Matthew looked at Delia, then at his teammates. I'm here. No one can do anything bad under my watch. Chen Zhao knew what Matthew was worried about. Just like how Chen Zhao didn't trust Delia, Matthew didn't trust her either. To Matthew, Chen Zhao was a stranger too. But Chen Zhao gave Matthew a completely different feeling. There were too many suspicious points about Delia's actions. This was why Matthew didn't feel safe letting Delia watch over his teammates. If it was the previous Chen Zhao, it wouldn't be a problem. But Matthew was worried about Chen Zhao's physical condition and how much combat power he had left. If Delia did something wrong, would Chen Zhao be able to stop her? Don't worry. I'll watch her. She can't do anything. Matthew was still hesitant. Everyone needs to eat now. Okay, I'll leave this place to you, Matthew said. Matthew didn't leave immediately. Instead, he walked toward Delia. Delia, I'm going to find food. Wait for me here. I won't be gone for long. All right. Don't worry and go. Delia nodded. She could tell what Matthew meant. He wasn't saying that he wouldn't be gone for long to make her feel at ease. He was warning her that if she did anything wrong, Matthew wouldn't let her go. Matthew looked at Chen Zhao and nodded slightly. Then he turned and left. After watching Matthew leave, Delia glanced at the 4 weak people and walked toward Chen Zhao with a smile. Hey, Chen, you don't look too good. Even Delia could feel Chen Zhao's weakness. Different from his previous thick aura, Chen Zhao's aura was so tiny that it was almost negligible. Chen Zhao looked up at Delia. Do you think I'm so weak that even you can't beat me? Oh, do you still have power? How much do you have left? Delia's tone was somewhat provocative. Chen Zhao only glanced at Delia indifferently and continued sitting on the ground. I'm talking to you. Delia suddenly shouted. Put away your pride. You have no pride in front of me right now. What, you're not going to hide it anymore? Chen Zhao's tone was still so casual. Delia's lips curled up. I never expected to keep lying. Plus, haven't you guys been suspicious of me for a long time? Indeed. Chen Zhao nodded. But since you know that we're suspicious of you, do you think Matthew really left? Delia's expression changed drastically. She suddenly looked in the direction that Matthew had left. Ha! Looks like you're not as confident as you appear. Delia's expression darkened. Are you messing with me? Do you think you're not dying fast enough? Chapter 2283. Chen Zhao only lifted his eyelids slightly and looked at Delia, who was smoking. And this kind of condescending attitude made Delia even more furious. This anger even made her reason start burning. Red smoke kept coming out of her head. Red gas. As the owner of red magic, she should be able to control the red gas for her own use. But now, she seemed to be controlled by the gas instead. Looks like you're not in a good state either. Chen Zhao's lips curled into a smile. How do you know I'm not in a good state? Do you really think it's because I'm not in a good state? Not because I'm in a very good state. The scarlet aura didn't just change Delia's tone of voice, it also changed the tone of her voice. It was as if there was something hidden in her voice. Do you think I'm being controlled by something? Ha! Delia chuckled softly. Oh. From your tone, it seems like you have a new explanation for your current state. No one controls the other. Everything I do is voluntary. It and I are just using each other. It understands my intentions, and I understand its thoughts. I know what I can get, and I know what I need to pay. Chen Zhao shrugged. Looks like you're a smart person. Chen Zhao had seen many fallen people. Most of them had fallen with pitiful hopes. Even when they fell into darkness, they still had a sliver of hope. They felt that they didn't need to pay any price, or that they only needed to pay an extremely small price to obtain what others gave them. Delia seemed ignorant and naive, but she actually knew better than anyone else. That was why Chen Zhao said she was a smart person. The one who made the deal with you is that red demon, right? Isn't it obvious? Delia didn't deny it. He wants you to release him. Ha! Delia let out a mocking laugh. I'm not that naive, and he's not that naive either. He wouldn't ask me to destroy the seal, because he knows that it's impossible for me to do so. Chen Zhao stood up with his arms propped up. Clapping his hands, he said, then what's the deal? What? You want to deal with him too? Delia felt that Chen Zhao was interested in the power and path she had obtained. I'm just curious. Don't even think about it. You'll never get it. Delia did not believe him. Only someone like me, who practices scarlet magic, has the right to trade with him. Oh. Why not? I'm stronger than you, so I think he'll be more than happy to make a deal with me. You want to get information out of my mouth? Or are you trying to buy time? You've said so much. Don't you want to say more? After I break your arms and legs, I will seriously tell you the contents of the deal. Bang. Suddenly, Chen Zhao attacked without any warning. He grabbed Delia's neck and pressed her to the ground. You, tell me what your deal is about, Chen Zhao said calmly. Delia was shocked. She wanted to struggle, but Chen Zhao wasn't as weak as she thought. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't shake off that unbreakable power. But this guy's aura was clearly weaker than a normal person's. How could he still be so strong? Logically speaking, he shouldn't even be able to move a finger. Just then, Angie, Bo Ontu, Thea, and Orlando all stood up when they saw the conflict. What? You want to stop me? No, before Matthew left, he said that whatever you do is right, Angie said coldly. We won't cause trouble for you. That's good. Chen Zhao nodded and looked back at Delia. Tell me about the teachings of you and the red demon. Delia stared at Chen Zhao hatefully, but she still relented in the end. She was stubborn, but she wasn't an idiot. And she wasn't facing an idiot either. I damaged a part of the seal. Then, he released the red gas from the crack in the seal for me to absorb, Delia said. Red magic seems to be very harmful to the spiritual world and normal society, but in reality, it can't reach the level that people think it is, because all red magic relies on absorbing red gas as a foundation. You people are born with great talent and a powerful background. You don't understand how a marginal witch like me, who carries a sinful inheritance, struggles in the spiritual world. I'm weak and insignificant. I need to use all my strength to deal with a mere evil spirit, let alone become a top spiritualist. The more Delia spoke, the more indignant she became. Her eyes were filled with fury. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt Delia's aura increase dozens of times. Boom! Chen Zhao was sent flying. Delia was already covered by the red aura. When I was sent here, all the bad luck seemed to have turned into good luck. The accumulation of the past 20 years finally produced good wine. Delia's aura was still increasing. This is the red battlefield, the birthplace of red magic. There's also what I need the most here. The red gas that's long been extinct in the outside world permeates the air here. I can absorb it without any worries. Every minute I stay here, my power increases a little. In just 2 days, my power has increased to an unimaginable level. And here, I've even come into contact with the source of everything, the red demon. The red gas I absorb is just released unconsciously. There's even purer red gas in his body. That's the power I've been dreaming of. Delia had already arrived before Chen Zhao, who was lying on the shattered ground. What I need to do is destroy the seal. 548 legends, Delia said calmly. Although I can't destroy it completely, with your stupidity, the 3 holy swords were still destroyed. Because of this, there's a gap in the 548 legends. The red demon also fulfilled his promise. He's transferring more power to me. He promised that as long as I can bear it, he'll satisfy me. Do you feel despair now? No, you're not strong enough, Chen Zhao said calmly. You're not strong enough to make me feel despair. Chapter 2284. This time, Delia wasn't angry. Instead, she laughed. Then what about now? Delia's aura skyrocketed again. It was an exponential increase. Her aura had already increased by more than 10 times. Now, it doubled again. This made her aura even more terrifying and the red aura even more intense. She was like a demon covered in red steam. She howled in the red steam. The 3 holy swords you destroyed weren't enough to shake the entire seal, but it was just enough for the red demon's power to pass to me through the crack. Are you sure it's your power? Chen Zhao sneered at Delia. Ha! Are you trying to tell me that this external power can't be trusted? Delia lowered her head and looked at him. And then you're telling me to give up on this power. For others, the scarlet gas is a deadly and strange poison. However, for me, who has mastered the scarlet magic, it is an unprecedented energy replenishment. I can absolutely use and control this power. I will also become unprecedentedly powerful. Even Zhang Tianyi, even the 23rd generation Blood Mary, they will have to surrender to me. Chen Zhao looked at Delia. As the saying went, the ignorant were fearless. This sentence was most suitable for Delia. She didn't understand what level Zhang Tianyi and the 23rd Blood Mary were at. She also didn't understand how big the gap between them was. That was why she dared to say such arrogant words. Chen Zhao looked at Delia. You know nothing about power. You know nothing about power, Delia said in disdain. At the same time, she lifted her foot and prepared to step on his chest. But the next moment, a golden barrier blocked Delia's foot. But cracks also appeared on the golden barrier. It seemed like it would shatter at any moment. It was Angie who'd attacked. She spread her wings again. This time, her wings were pure white and flawless. There wasn't any red color at all. Delia turned to look at Angie, Bo onto Fee, and Orlando. Looks like you've all recovered a lot of magic, but are you sure you can beat my mom now? You can try, evil witch. Angie didn't hide her disgust for India. You still don't understand what true evil looks like. Delia let out a cold snort. Angie didn't want to say anything more. A dazzling light flashed in her hand, and then a long sword made of holy light condensed in her palm. The wings on Angie's back flapped, and she charged straight towards Delia. A hint of mockery was on Delia's face. It wasn't like she didn't know how to use offensive spells. However, the number of offensive spells she could use in the past was pitifully small, and their power was relatively mediocre. And as her power continued to grow, the number of spells she could choose from also increased. For example, even if an ant had enough ammunition to equip an army, the ant would not have enough strength to use it. But if this ant had the strength of a human, then it could choose many, many weapons. The same was true for Delia. In the past, her weakness and lowliness were just a form of disguise and self-protection. Humans were like this. The more they lacked something, the less they desired it. Delia felt that she didn't need to disguise anymore. The surging power in her body gave her the illusion that she was looking down on the world. She seemed to understand a lot of knowledge that she couldn't understand in the past. She waved her hand casually, and dozens of red arrows appeared around her. She pointed at Angie in the air. The dozens of red arrows shot at Angie. Angie blocked with her sword, but she seemed to be in a difficult position. Watch out! Seeing that Angie couldn't handle it, Orlando decisively helped her block a few arrows. Seeing Angie and Orlando in a difficult position, Delia's lips curled up slightly. In the past, spiritualists like Angie and Orlando were existences that Delia had to look up to. Now, they were in a difficult position after a random attack from her. This made her feel unprecedentedly satisfied. She couldn't stop her powerful strength. Just then, Bo Untu and Fee stood up too. Let's go together. This was definitely not the time to show their chivalry. They weren't in a good state right now. They'd only recovered 10 to 20% of their magic power. They were also very tired. If not to save Qin Zhao, they wouldn't even want to fight. In addition, Delia had displayed an unusual sense of power and pressure. If they still wanted to fight one-on-one now, they might be wiped out by Delia here. Delia's strength had come suddenly, but she wasn't unfamiliar with it at all. She waved her hand lightly, and the red gas turned into a giant. The attacks of Angie and the others landed on the red giant, dispersing into nothingness directly. Use a little more strength. Is this all you've got? Delia unscrupulously displayed her strength. The more powerless Angie and the others were, the more satisfied she was. The red giant casually punched the ground. A terrifying shockwave swept through the surroundings. Angie and the others were sent flying by the impact. Too weak. You're really too weak. You disappoint me. I thought I could have a good fight. Delia didn't notice that there was a black shadow under her feet. Qin Zhao's dark lava silently spread to Delia's feet. However, Qin Zhao didn't attack immediately. Instead, he quietly absorbed the red gas. I can absorb it. Qin Zhao realized that the red gas could be absorbed. Just like the other evil existences Qin Zhao had devoured in the past, the dark lava could devour them directly. Suddenly, India's laughter came to an abrupt halt. Was it an illusion? Confusion appeared on Delia's face. It was as if her power had dropped a little. But soon, the red demon's power surged over again. Delia immediately tossed the illusion to the back of her mind. But Delia's pleasure didn't last for too long. The feeling of falling back came again. The weakness came too suddenly. Delia didn't understand what was wrong with her at all. She didn't lack great power now. But she didn't have much battle experience. So, she didn't know the dark lava under her feet at all. But soon, an even stronger feeling of weakness came. Delia finally realized that her scarlet aura was diminishing. Immediately, Delia looked down and found that she was standing on a patch of dark magma. She'd seen Chen Zhao use this move before, so she immediately understood. Chapter 2285. How dare you steal my power? I want you dead. Delia was instantly enraged. This power belonged to her. She wouldn't allow anyone to touch it. But Chen Zhao had actually stolen her power. This made her completely explode. It was different from when she faced Angie, Bo Ontu, Fi, and Alterando. Against the four of them, Delia treated them like a game. It was a suppression of power. She could toy with them as she pleased. But Chen Zhao had stolen what belonged to her. This was what she cared about the most. All the scarlet gas turned back into a terrifying scarlet giant. It was even bigger and scarier than before. The scarlet energy in the surroundings was also rising. But in the next moment, the dark magma turned into a curtain that enveloped the scarlet giant. The scarlet giant rammed against the curtain. Delia's expression froze. She realized that her connection with the red giant had been cut off. The red giant had already used up most of her power. Now that the red giant had been devoured, she was even more furious. Give it back. The red gas around Delia turned into a huge red sword and slashed at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao only glanced at Delia casually. He didn't dodge. He just let the red sword slash his body. His body, which should have been cut open, stood there unharmed except for the cracked ground. Instead, the red sword fell apart, turning into red crystals that filled the sky. Delia was shocked. Angie, Bo Ontu, Fi, and Alterando all had the same expression. Was this still the weak Chen Zhao? Shouldn't Chen Zhao be defeated by Delia? Chen Zhao's aura was still small and insignificant. But now, no one would believe that Chen Zhao was weak. That's it. Chen Zhao said casually. If that's the case, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to face Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary. Defeat them. Ha! Are you kidding me? Delia was shocked and furious. Chen Zhao's clearly weak but terrifying power made her hair stand on end. You thief! You stole my power. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me. Delia suddenly realized that it was definitely because Chen Zhao had stolen her power. Otherwise, how could the weak Chen Zhao defeat him? There was no reason for Chen Zhao to win. Chen Zhao shrugged, not planning to defend himself. I will use even greater power to defeat you. The scarlet aura in Delia's body began to fill up again. Chen Zhao didn't take the chance to attack Delia. The red aura in Delia's body was still very small to Chen Zhao, even insignificant. But to Chen Zhao, it was like a supplement. It was better than nothing. This scarlet gas contained strong negative emotions, and it was very easy to incite people's anger. However, these negative emotions were nothing compared to the King of Wrath's bloodline. Chen Zhao also considered that it was probably because of his King of Wrath bloodline that he wasn't affected by the red gas. In some sense, the red gas was very similar to Qinzhao's dark lava. It was just that one existed in liquid form. The other one existed in a gaseous state. As for the difference in color, it wasn't really a difference. For example, Qinzhao's dark lava should have been called dark serum, but after it merged with the lava, it became black with a hint of red. Later on, the dark lava had devoured mutants or demons a few times, causing the black color to overshadow the red. So, the color of the dark serum would change according to different attributes and the host's growth. If the red gas was also the mutated dark serum of a demon with the King of Wrath bloodline, it was understandable. Delia's red aura was filled up again. She attacked Qinzhao again. The process was different, but the result was the same. Delia stared at Qinzhao in disbelief. Just like that, Qinzhao faced her attack head-on. He didn't dodge or block. But her attack didn't do anything. To her, this was completely incomprehensible. Was it because her magic level was too low? Impossible. In the past, these spells would be catastrophic and destructive. The other four were dumbfounded too. They knew that Qinzhao was powerful, but he was clearly very weak. How could he block Delia's attack when he was so weak? They couldn't understand. They couldn't understand. Qinzhao just stood there listlessly. Looks like you don't have any other moves, Qinzhao said calmly. Gritting her teeth, Delia kept staring at Qinzhao. She really couldn't do anything. The most powerful spell was useless before Qinzhao. She didn't know what to do either. Qinzhao pointed at Delia. Are you ready to die? Panting, Delia looked at Qinzhao. Her mind spun. Although Qinzhao blocked all her attacks, he still couldn't move. But he hadn't really counterattacked. Even the black substance from before only wrapped around her scarlet giant and did not attack her directly. Maybe he couldn't even fight back. Maybe he's just bluffing now. Qinzhao had absorbed quite a lot of scarlet aura. Although Delia's scarlet aura was endless, it was still too little. To Qinzhao, an extra drop of water in a lake didn't mean much. So, there was no point in keeping Delia alive. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The vibration was very unusual. It interrupted Qinzhao's next move. Rumble, the entire barren market was shaking violently. Zhang Tianyi rushed to the edge of the roof and looked at a huge ball of fire in the distance. Over there. Zhang Tianyi frowned. He remembered that it should be the location of one of the seals. It was the only seal that hadn't been opened yet. Wendy's expression was unprecedentedly serious. All 4 seals have been opened. How is that possible? What exactly happened there? What's wrong? I've already monitored the area. There's no one nearby at all. Why was the seal still opened? You mean no one has been nearby? Zhang Tianyi asked, surprised. Yes, what's wrong? Not a single person. Not a single person. Is there a problem? That location isn't that remote. How is it possible that no one has approached that area? What right do you have to say that about me? Anand glared at her companion. You've always been a traitor, so it's not surprising that you betrayed us again, is it? Just then, another person said, Russell, you're so eager to bite on Nancy. Could it be that you're the traitor? Dolive, do you think you're innocent? You've been secretly leaving marks along the way. Who are you leaving these marks for? At this time, another person was bidden out. Nancy was shocked to find that everyone seemed to have their own ulterior motives. Everyone had a reason to betray and be suspicious. On the contrary, she, the traitor, was the cleanest. At this moment, the mutual accusations and suspicions completely broke out. Nancy looked at these people. She watched them go from suspicion to quarrel, and from quarrel to fight. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot, and they attacked each other mercilessly. At this moment, Einander finally realized that something was wrong. Although they were all suspects, shouldn't the most important thing at this time be to collect the spoils of war that belonged to them? They shouldn't be killing each other here. And looking at their attacks, it seemed that they had no intention of showing mercy at all. Everyone attacked each other as if they were their mortal enemies. How could this be? How could this be? What's wrong with them? Nancy's mind shook. They were affected by some kind of magic. But how was this possible? Every one of them was a super expert. How could someone control their minds? No magic could control their minds at the same time. In fact, it was impossible for anyone to be controlled by someone. Even Zhang Tianyi or the 23rd generation Blood Mary couldn't do it. Although they were top experts, they could defeat her group of people, but they couldn't control them. What was going on? They hadn't lost their minds. Suddenly, a hand was placed on Nancy's shoulder. Nancy was so scared that she retreated and turned her head. He realized that it was an unfamiliar Asian face. Who are you? You're very special. I can't even see your fate. You should know that I can even influence those supreme spiritualists, but you can't. The Asian man had a faint smile. Nancy looked at the battlefield between her companions, and then at the Asian man. You're the mastermind behind all this. It's obvious, isn't it? The Asian man shrugged, and there was a proud smile on his face. I just gently fiddled with it, and then everyone's fate was entangled. Their actions, decisions, and even their thoughts were all guided and controlled by me. Who are you? Don't play tricks in front of me. Nancy was already secretly preparing to fight back. Who am I? My name is Li Zhongshan. Li Zhongshan. Nancy frowned. She didn't remember such a person in the spiritual world. You're very special, but you're still a little immature. If you become strong enough in the future, you can come find me and become one of us. Nancy wasn't so gullible. After silently brewing, she suddenly threw a bottle of magic water at Li Zhongshan. However, when the magic water was less than a foot away from Li Zhongshan, it suddenly stopped and condensed into a water ball in midair. I said, you're not strong enough, and you're not smart enough. You shouldn't attack an existence stronger than you. Do you think you can make me retreat with just a few words? Then what do I have to do to make you leave? Do you need me to cut off your limbs? Or step over your dead body? Chapter 2287. Just as Nancy was hesitating whether to retreat or not, an unfamiliar voice came from behind. Li Zhongshan, stop playing around. Nancy suddenly turned around and looked behind her. It was a woman with short red hair, heavy makeup, and a low-cut top. The woman also had an Asian face. The woman just glanced at Nancy casually. Nancy felt like she was being stared at by a dangerous creature. All the hairs on her body stood up. Danger. This woman was extremely dangerous. All right, Red Lotus, stop scaring the kids. Let's go. Li Zhongshan laughed and tried to smooth things over. The woman called Red Lotus looked at Nancy again before following Li Zhongshan's footsteps. Nancy's expression flickered. She looked at the departing Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus, then at her companions. They didn't seem to know two uninvited guests had just arrived. They were still fighting each other, as if they viewed everyone else as irreconcilable enemies. After Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus left, Li Zhongshan's expression suddenly darkened. Did Zhua Yiqing fail? I don't know the specifics, but he seems to have failed. Red Lotus said. What do we do now? That Zhang Tianyi wasn't thrown into the game as a chess piece. If he tries to interfere, we won't be his match even if we work together. There's nothing we can do. Let's go meet up with the boss first and see what he plans. Red Lotus said. The two quickly met up with their companions. The boss they spoke of was currently sitting on a rock, one hand on his temple as if he was in a deep sleep. To his left was a man in a black robe. His expression was extremely ugly and somewhat annoyed. To his right was a woman holding a makeup box, dressing herself in front of the mirror. She didn't seem to care about the tense atmosphere in front of her. Boss. Li Zhongshan walked up and greeted him. The boss narrowed his eyes and looked at the returning Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus. Yes, you're back. What's the situation now? Li Zhongshan asked. Let Zhua Yiqing speak. The boss said indifferently. According to the original plan, we planned to send Zhang Tianyi into the Scarlet Battlefield and make him a chess piece before releasing the Red Demon. But for some reason, the teleportation device was triggered, and Zhang Tianyi wasn't sent in. Could it be that someone else inadvertently met the conditions you set, so someone else replaced Zhang Tianyi and was transported inside? Li Zhongshan asked. Impossible. Although I have set up a lot of teleportation devices in the Wasteland market, that device is specially reserved for Zhang Tianyi. Moreover, that device also has a specific condition. Other than Zhang Tianyi, no one else can trigger it. Could it be that Zhang Tianyi triggered it, and then he cracked it? I believe he can break it, but that teleportation happened in an instant. He doesn't have time to break it. You've explained so much, but you still failed in the end, the woman said disdainfully. Alright, now is not the time to blame anyone. Scheming against Zhang Tianyi is already very risky. Zhua Yiqing's failure isn't unexpected. The boss interrupted the woman. We can only take it one step at a time. If we really have to face Zhang Tianyi, then we need to prepare in advance. Don't act rashly when the time comes. Don't look for me if it's convenient to fight. I can't help. Li Zhongshan said indifferently. He wasn't completely powerless, but he really didn't want to fight Zhang Tianyi. With his combat ability, fighting Zhang Tianyi was no different from suicide. It's best not to fight if we can. The boss said in a low voice. That old guy is really too strong. Even if we work together and prepare in advance, it's still hard to guarantee that we can escape unscathed. The boss looked at Li Zhongshan. Old Li, do you have a way to make Zhang Tianyi change his mind? How is that possible? I'm not an immortal. That old man's cultivation is so much higher than mine. Previously, he was just scheming against me. I slightly twisted his mind. It's impossible for me to do it a second time. That's right. Boss, since this mistake was caused by me, I have the responsibility to take responsibility. I'll deal with Zhang Tianyi. Zhua Yiqing solemnly said. You? Are you sure you can stop him? Half an hour. I can stop him for half an hour at most. Oh, Zhua Yiqing, when did you learn to talk big? You actually said you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour. Even if all of us work together, we can't guarantee that we can stop him for half an hour. You're just talking big. The woman began to attack Zhua Yiqing with sharp words. Everyone was already used to the woman's words and actions. The boss ignored the woman's harsh words and seriously looked at Zhua Yiqing. Can you really guarantee that you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour? I can. Good, half an hour. As long as you complete the mission, I'll let bygones be bygones. The boss stood up. Then let's move out and welcome the red demon. Bai Shui, are you ready? The woman put away her makeup box, a rare solemn expression on her face. Zhuai Yiqing, send us over there. Zhuai Yiqing nodded and casually threw out a die. It rolled until it was a 4. In an instant, the die shot out a beam of light that enveloped the boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and Bai Shui. Then, the 4 disappeared from Zhuai Yiqing's sight. Zhuai Yiqing's expression of anger and regret disappeared, replaced with a meaningful smile. The next moment, the 4 appeared in the sky above the scarlet battlefield. What a dense scarlet aura. It looks like he's really about to come out. What a powerful aura. Even if he hasn't completely broken free of the seal, just this aura alone is enough to catch up to Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi's cultivation is unfathomable, but his methods aren't as simple as that. Ever since he became famous, no one has been able to probe his limits. There's no lack of people from our branches among them. Is that old man really that powerful? He's stronger than you think. The outside world isn't just bragging when they say that he's the strongest human in the spirit world. Oh, there's a battle over there. Let's go take a look, Li Zhongshan said. The 4 arrived above the battlefield and looked down at the battle below. What a powerful physique. Who's that man? When did someone like him appear in the Eastern spirit world? Although his physique is outstanding, why is his aura so weak? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2288. Chen Zhao looked at the 4 figures passing by in the air. Chen Zhao's senses were restricted, but his vision was not. So, when they got close, Chen Zhao had already noticed them. The boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and the dresser looked down at Chen Zhao. Then they looked at Angie, Bo Ontu, Fi, and Orlando behind him. That woman is a pitiful person abandoned by the entire world, Li Zhongshan said with a smile. I only helped her a little. Everyone glanced at Li Zhongshan. They were already used to Li Zhongshan's bad habits. He liked to go around looking for special people, then after giving them a certain amount of help, he would collect high interest. For example, India couldn't cultivate her scarlet magic. Li Zhongshan had arranged for her to be transported here. She obtained what she'd been looking for so long here, the scarlet aura. India thought that she was lucky. But in reality, her fate was already controlled by someone. Li Zhongshan had controlled more than 100 people like India. Of course, most people were being controlled by Li Zhongshan without realizing it. They couldn't give Li Zhongshan anything in return. But as long as 1 or 2 succeeded, Li Zhongshan would receive a lot of rewards. Just then, the ground shook violently. A huge cross-shaped gash began to spread. A figure rose from the huge crack. The body had closed eyes and a head of golden hair. It was filled with divinity. Everyone had the same thought in their minds, God. The body that rose from the crack was God. However, it was just a body now. It didn't have any soul or consciousness. Has it started? Li Zhongshan and the others looked at the body. Just then, red tentacles extended out from the crack. They were all formed by the scarlet aura. Only, the red aura was far denser than the one on Delia's body. The red tentacles wrapped around God's body. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. That thing wanted to take over God's body. He couldn't let it happen before him. Chen Zhao moved and charged toward God's body. But the next moment, Chen Zhao's head hit an invisible wall and he shot to the ground. This is a crucial time, those who are not involved, please do not interfere with our plan, Boss raised his hand and said. Chen Zhao stood up awkwardly. The impact just now was not light. Almost all the power that Chen Zhao had used just now was reflected back to him. Chen Zhao looked at the four people in the air and then at the top of the cross-shaped crack. In other words, you are the masterminds behind this conspiracy. Was I also teleported here by you guys? After it comes out, it will be very hungry, so it needs a large amount of food to fill its stomach before it can communicate normally, Boss calmly said. And you? As food, you should act like food. Just as everyone's attention was on Chen Zhao, a beam of golden light descended from the sky without warning. Judgment sword, evil, obliterate. Matthew held the blade of the sword that was filled with the power of glory, and the tip of the sword stabbed downward. An incomparably pure and holy pair of wings appeared behind Matthew. That divine power pierced through heaven and earth. But there was another figure faster than Matthew. Red Lotus moved and blocked in front of Matthew. Matthew's momentum was from above, so he could not turn at all. The sword was also indomitable. In an instant, the golden judgment sword pierced through Red Lotus' chest. But Red Lotus did not seem to be heavily injured. The judgment sword that pierced through her chest and back did not bring out blood, but strange flames. Matthew realized that something was wrong. He wanted to pull back his sword and retreat. But Red Lotus grabbed Matthew's arms, and Matthew felt a burning pain in his arms. The strange flames were spreading from Red Lotus' palms to Matthew's arms. Since you're here, don't run. Matthew was shocked. The burning pain was unbearable. Matthew suddenly raised his sword and slashed upward. The judgment sword sliced from Red Lotus' chest to her head, almost cutting her upper body in half. But Red Lotus was still unharmed. Her upper body had actually split into 2 bodies and 2 heads. Do it! Chen Zhao shouted. Angie, Bo onto, Fei, and Otto behind him moved at the same time. Boss glanced at Chen Zhao's group. I've been waiting for you. Boss slapped at them through the air. Boss's palm turned into a giant Buddha palm and smashed down at them. Chen Zhao suddenly sped up and disappeared in the air. Boss was slightly surprised. Chen Zhao's speed was beyond his expectations. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao had appeared behind Matthew and Red Lotus. Chen Zhao's fist pierced through Red Lotus' back. One of Red Lotus' heads turned 180 degrees. Idiot! As soon as Red Lotus finished speaking, she suddenly felt uncomfortable. Chen Zhao's fist that was embedded in Red Lotus' back was crazily devouring her flesh and energy with the mouth of gluttony. You, save me! Red Lotus was shocked and cried out in alarm. So stupid. The dressing woman suddenly put away her mirror and kicked horizontally. Bang! Chen Zhao was sent flying. The Red Lotus fire on Red Lotus suddenly surged. All of you, die! Red Lotus was furious. Seeing the Red Lotus fire approaching, Matthew immediately used holy light to protect his body. But the Red Lotus fire was far more powerful than he'd expected. The moment the Red Lotus fire touched his holy light, Matthew's holy light disintegrated. The Red Lotus fire spread to Matthew's body. Oh! Matthew let out a miserable scream as he fell to the ground, rolling around and wailing in pain. Chen Zhao saw Matthew's pitiful state from a distance. The dark lava immediately spread over and covered Matthew's body. Chen Zhao could feel the dark lava evaporating and dissipating. But he couldn't care so much right now. A golden wheel of light formed behind the head of the god's body. The body raised its palm and observed it carefully. Is this the body of a god? What a terrifying monster. The Red Devil had completely taken over this body. He was also called a monster by the world. But in the mouth of this monster, God was also a monstrous existence. Even though God had already died and only left behind a body, it still made him gasp in amazement. "Greetings, Your Excellency Edalu." Boss slowly landed in front of the Red Demon and called him by his real name. The Red Devil was judged by the church to be a demon who would bring disaster to the world. However, few people knew his identity. He wasn't a pure demon. He had once been a member of the church, and a high-level one at that. He had lost a power struggle related to the church's pope. This caused him to switch to the evil camp. He opened the church's dungeon and released all the evil creatures and demons that had been imprisoned. Every evil creature he released had to hand over a drop of essence blood and be enslaved by him. Through absorbing the essence blood, he transformed himself into an indescribable monster. He also triggered the church's first crusade. The Red Devil glanced at Boss. "I've long given up on my human name. Then do you need me to call you the Red Devil?" "You can also be the Scarlet God," the Red Devil said matter-of-factly. The Red Devil said matter-of-factly, "I like working with you Easterners. Even if it's a vow from 1,000 years ago, you still abide by it and carry it out to the end." Boss had a faint smile on his face. "Now, it's time for you to fulfill your vow, Scarlet God." "I'm hungry," the Red Devil said. "I've prepared a sumptuous banquet for you," Boss said calmly. The Red Devil looked at Matthew and couldn't help but smile. He licked his lips. Then, he looked at Angie, Bo Onto, Fee, and Alterando. "The quality is excellent, but the quantity is a little low." The Red Devil's hatred towards the church was obvious. You can take a look at the entire battlefield. The Red Devil abruptly released his perception. In an instant, the entire scarlet battlefield fell into his range of senses. However, the Red Devil's gaze fell on the crack. What's inside? It was unclear if the Red Devil was talking to himself or asking Boss. "It's just a roasted corpse," Boss said calmly. Suddenly, magma surged out of the crack without any warning. It shot hundreds of meters into the sky. Everyone was startled by this sudden scene. A figure walked out of the erupting magma. "Ha! He's not dead." Boss and the dresser were both shocked. Matthew and the others were naturally overjoyed. They also didn't expect Qin Zhao to still be alive. They didn't understand why Qin Zhao wasn't dead. But this wasn't important anymore. As long as he wasn't dead, it was more important than anything else. The dresser put away her vanity mirror again. When she looked at Qin Zhao, her eyes were filled with anger. "So what if he's not dead? If I can defeat you once, I can defeat you again." With that, the dresser used the same trick again. Her body was covered in a layer of dark gold. It was that unparalleled speed again. Crack, but when the dresser appeared again, she realized that Qin Zhao had already lifted her upside down. One of her legs was firmly held by Qin Zhao. It was clearly twisted. Ah! The dresser didn't understand. Everyone didn't understand what had happened. But this result really happened. Caught you. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.